Argentina, officially named the Argentine Republic, Spanish, República Argentina, is a country located mostly in the southern half of South America. Sharing the bulk of the southern cone with Chile to the west, the country is also bordered by Bolivia and Paraguay to the north, Brazil to the northeast, Uruguay and the South Atlantic Ocean to the east, and the Drake Passage to the south. With a mainland area of 2,780,400 km to 1,073,500 square miles, Argentina is the 8th largest country in the world, the 4th largest in the Americas, and the largest Spanish-speaking nation. The sovereign state is subdivided into 23 provinces, Spanish, provincias, singular provincia, and one autonomous city, Ciudad Autónoma, Buenos Aires, which is the federal capital of the nation, Spanish, capital federal, as decided by Congress. The provinces and the capital have their own constitutions, but exist under a federal system. Argentina claims sovereignty over part of Antarctica, the Falkland Islands, Spanish, Islas Malvinas, and South Georgia and the South Sandwich Islands. The earliest recorded human presence in modern-day Argentina dates back to the Paleolithic period. The country has its roots in Spanish colonization of the region during the 16th century. Argentina rose as the successor state of the Viceroyalty of the Rio de la Plata, a Spanish overseas viceroyalty founded in 1776. The Declaration and Fight for Independence, 1810 to 1818, was followed by an extended civil war that lasted until 1861, culminating in the country's reorganization as a federation of provinces with Buenos Aires as its capital city. The country thereafter enjoyed relative peace and stability, with several waves of European immigration radically reshaping its cultural and demographic outlook. The almost unparalleled increase in prosperity led to Argentina becoming the 7th wealthiest nation in the world by the early 20th century. Following the Great Depression in the 1930s, Argentina descended into political instability and economic decline that pushed it back into underdevelopment, though it remained among the 15 richest countries for several decades. Following the death of President Juan Perón in 1974, his wife Isabel Martínez de Perón ascended to the presidency. She was overthrown in 1976 by a U.S.-backed coup which installed a right-wing military dictatorship. The military government persecuted and murdered numerous political critics, activists, and leftists in the Dirty War, a period of state terrorism that lasted until the election of Raúl Alfonsín as president in 1983. Several of the junta's leaders were later convicted of their crimes and sentenced to imprisonment. Argentina retains its historic status as a middle power in international affairs, and is a prominent regional power in the Southern Cone and Latin America. Argentina has the 2nd largest economy in South America, the 3rd largest in Latin America, and is a member of the G15 and G20 major economies. It is also a founding member of the United Nations, World Bank, World Trade Organization, Mercosur, Union of South American Nations, Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, and the Organization of Ibero-American States. It is the country with the 2nd highest Human Development Index in Latin America with a rating of very high. Name and etymology. The description of the country by the word Argentina has been found on a Venetian map in 1536. In English, the name, Argentina, comes from the Spanish language. However, the naming itself is not Spanish, but Italian. Argentina, masculine Argentino, means in Italian, made of silver, silver-colored, probably borrowed from the old French adjective Argentine, made of silver, more than silver-colored, already mentioned in the 12th century. The French word Argentine is the feminine form of Argentin and derives from argent, silver, with the suffix in, same construction as Old French acirin, made of steel, from asaya, steel, plus in or sap in, made of fir wood, from of sap, fir, plus in. The Italian naming, Argentina, for the country implies Terra Argentina, land of silver, or Costa Argentina, coast of silver. In Italian, the adjective or the proper noun is often used in an autonomous way as a substantive and replaces it, and it is said l'Argentina. The name Argentina was probably first given by the Venetian and Genoese navigators, such as Giovanni Caboto. In Spanish and Portuguese, the words for silver are respectively plato and prata, and made of silver is said platedo and pratedo. Argentina was first associated with the Silver Mountains legend, widespread among the first European explorers of the La Plata Basin. The first written use of the name in Spanish can be traced to La Argentina, a 1602 poem by Martin del Barco Centenera describing the region. Although Argentina was already in common usage by the 18th century, the country was formally named Viceroyalty of the Rio de la Plata by the Spanish Empire and United Provinces of the Rio de la Plata after independence. The 1826 Constitution included the first use of the name Argentine Republic in legal documents. The name, Argentine Confederation, was also commonly used and was formalized in the Argentine Constitution of 1853. In 1860 a presidential decree settled the country's name as Argentine Republic, and that year's constitutional amendment ruled all the names since 1810 as legally valid. In the English language the country was traditionally called the Argentine, mimicking the typical Spanish usage La Argentina and perhaps resulting from a mistaken shortening of the fuller name, Argentine Republic. The Argentine fell out of fashion during the mid to late 20th century, and now the country is simply referred to as Argentina. In the Spanish language, Argentina is feminine, La Argentina, taking the feminine article, la, as the initial syllable of Argentina is unstressed. History, pre-Columbian era. The Cave of the Hands in Santa Cruz province, with indigenous artwork dating from 13,000 to 9,000 years ago. The fortification of Pucara de Tilcara in Jujuy province, part of the Inca Empire. The earliest traces of human life in the area now known as Argentina were dated from the Paleolithic period, with further traces in the Mesolithic and Neolithic. Until the period of European colonization, Argentina was relatively sparsely populated by a wide number of diverse cultures with different social organizations, which can be divided into three main groups. The first group are basic hunters and food gatherers without development of pottery, such as the Selknam and Yagan in the extreme south. The second group are advanced hunters and food gatherers, which include the Pielch, Guarandi and Serranos in the center-east, and the Tehuelche in the south, all of them conquered by the Mapuche spreading from Chile, and the common Wichi in the north. The last group are farmers with pottery, like the Charrúa, Minuane and Guarani in the northeast, with slash-and-burn semi-sedentary existence. The advanced Diaguita sedentary trading culture in the northwest, which was conquered by the Inca Empire around 1480, the Toconotania and Camia in the country's center, and the Huap in the center-west, a culture that raised llama cattle and was strongly influenced by the Incas. Colonial era. See also Spanish colonization of the Americas, painting showing the surrender during the British invasions of the Rio de la Plata. The surrender of Beersford to Santiago de Liniers during the British invasions of the Rio de la Plata. Europeans first arrived in the region with the 1502 voyage of Amerigo Vespucci. The Spanish navigators Juan Díaz de Solís and Sebastián Cabot visited the territory that is now Argentina in 1516 and 1526, respectively. In 1536 Pedro de Mendoza founded the small settlement of Buenos Aires, which was abandoned in 1541. Further colonization efforts came from Paraguay, establishing the governorate of the Rio de la Plata, Peru and Chile. Francisco de Aguirre founded Santiago del Estero in 1553. Londres was founded in 1558. Mendoza, in 1561, San Juan, in 1562, San Miguel de Tucumán, in 1565. Juan de Garay founded Santa Fe in 1573 and the same year Jerónimo Luis de Cabrera set up Córdoba. Garay went further south to refound Buenos Aires in 1580. San Luis was established in 1596. The Spanish Empire subordinated the economic potential of the Argentine territory to the immediate wealth of the silver and gold mines in Bolivia and Peru, and as such it became part of the Viceroyalty of Peru until the creation of the Viceroyalty of the Rio de la Plata in 1776, with Buenos Aires as its capital. Buenos Aires repelled two ill-fated British invasions in 1806 and 1807. The ideas of the Age of Enlightenment and the example of the First Atlantic Revolutions generated criticism of the absolutist monarchy that ruled the country. As in the rest of Spanish America, the overthrow of Ferdinand VII during the Peninsular War created great concern. Independence and Civil Wars. Main articles. Argentine War of Independence and Argentine Civil Wars. Painting of San Martin holding the Argentine flag. Portrait of General José de San Martin, Libertador of Argentina, Chile and Peru, beginning a process from which Argentina was to emerge as successor state to the Viceroyalty. The 1810 May Revolution replaced the Viceroy Baltasar Hidalgo de Cisneros with the first junta, a new government in Buenos Aires composed by locals. In the first clashes of the Independence War the junta crushed a royalist counter-revolution in Córdoba, but failed to overcome those of the Banda Oriental, Upper Peru and Paraguay, which later became independent states. Revolutionaries split into two antagonist groups, the Centralists and the Federalists, a move that would define Argentina's first decades of independence. The Assembly of the year the 13th appointed Gervasio Antonio de Posadas as Argentina's first Supreme Director. On the 9th of July 1816, the Congress of Tucumán formalized the Declaration of Independence, which is now celebrated as Independence Day, a national holiday. 1 year later General Martin Miguel de Güemes stopped royalists on the north, and General José de San Martin took an army across the Andes and secured the independence of Chile. Then he led the fight to the Spanish stronghold of Lima and proclaimed the independence of Peru. In 1819, Buenos Aires enacted a centralist constitution that was soon abrogated by federalists. The 1820 Battle of Cepeda, fought between the centralists and the federalists, resulted in the end of the Supreme Director rule. In 1826, Buenos Aires enacted another centralist constitution, with Bernardino Rivadavia being appointed as the first president of the country. However, the interior provinces soon rose against him, forced his resignation and discarded the constitution. Centralists and federalists resumed the civil war. The latter prevailed and formed the Argentine Confederation in 1831, led by Juan Manuel de Rosas. During his regime he faced a French blockade, 1838 to 1840, the War of the Confederation, 1836 to 1839, and a combined Anglo-French blockade, 1845 to 1850, but remained undefeated and prevented further loss of national territory. His trade restriction policies, however, angered the interior provinces, and in 1852 Justo José de Aguirre, another powerful caudillo, beat him out of power. As new president of the Confederation, Aguirre enacted the liberal and federal 1853 constitution. Buenos Aires seceded but was forced back into the Confederation after being defeated in the 1859 Battle of Cepeda. Rise of the modern nation. Main articles. List of presidents of Argentina and generation of 80. See also Argentine-Chilean naval arms race and South American dreadnought race. People gathered in front of the Buenos Aires Cabildo during the May Revolution, overpowering Aguirre in the 1861 Battle of Pavon. Bartolo Mitre secured Buenos Aires' predominance and was elected as the first president of the reunified country. He was followed by Domingo Faustino Sarmiento and Nicolas Avellaneda. These three presidencies set up the basis of the modern Argentine state. The Argentina Centennial was celebrated on the 25th of May 1910. Starting with Julio Argentino Roca in 1880, 10 consecutive federal governments emphasized liberal economic policies. The massive wave of European immigration they promoted, second only to the United States, led to a near reinvention of Argentine society and economy that by 1908 had placed the country as the seventh wealthiest developed nation in the world. Driven by this immigration wave and decreasing mortality, the Argentine population grew fivefold and the economy 15-fold. From 1870 to 1910, Argentina's wheat exports went from 100,000 to 2,500,000 t, 110,000 to 2,760,000 short tons per year, while frozen beef exports increased from 25,000 to 365,000 t, 28,000 to 402,000 short tons per year, placing Argentina as one of the world's top 5 exporters. Its railway mileage rose from 503 to 31,104 kilometers, 313 to 19,327 miles. Fostered by a new public, compulsory, free and secular education system, literacy skyrocketed from 22% to 65%, a level higher than most Latin American nations would reach even 50 years later. Furthermore, real GDP grew so fast that despite the huge immigration influx, per capita income between 1862 and 1920 went from 67% of developed country levels to 100%. In 1865, Argentina was already one of the top 25 nations by per capita income. By 1908, it had surpassed Denmark, Canada and the Netherlands to reach 7th place, behind Switzerland, New Zealand, Australia, the United States, the United Kingdom and Belgium. Argentina's per capita income was 70% higher than Italy's, 90% higher than Spain's, 180% higher than Japan's and 400% higher than Brazil's. Despite these unique achievements, the country was slow to meet its original goals of industrialization. After steep development of capital-intensive local industries in the 1920s, a significant part of the manufacture sector remained labor-intensive in the 1930s. Between 1878 and 1884 the so-called conquest of the desert and Chaco occurred, with the purpose of giving by means of the constant confrontations between natives and criollos in the border, and the appropriation of the indigenous territories, tripling the Argentine territory. The first conquest consisted of a series of military incursions into the Pampa and Patagonian territories dominated by the indigenous peoples, distributing them among the members of the rural society, financiers of the expeditions. The conquest of Chaco lasted up to finds of the century, since its full ownership of the national economic system only took place when the mere extraction of wood and tannin was replaced by the production of cotton. The Argentine government considered indigenous people as inferior beings, without the same rights as criollos and Europeans. In 1912, President Roxines Pena enacted universal and secret male suffrage, which allowed Hipólito Yrigoyen, leader of the Radical Civic Union, or UCR, to win the 1916 election. He enacted social and economic reforms and extended assistance to small farms and businesses. Argentina stayed neutral during World War I. The second administration of Irigoyen faced an economic crisis, precipitated by the Great Depression. Infamous decade. In 1930, Irigoyen was ousted from power by the military led by José Félix Uriburu. Although Argentina remained among the 15 richest countries until mid-century, this coup d'état marks the start of a steady economic and social decline that pushed the country back into underdevelopment. Official presidential portrait of Juan Domingo Perón and his wife Eva Perón, 1948. Uriburu ruled for 2 years. Then Agustín Pedro Justo was elected in a fraudulent election, and signed a controversial treaty with the United Kingdom. Argentina stayed neutral during World War II, a decision that had full British support but was rejected by the United States after the attack on Pearl Harbor. A new military coup toppled the government, and Argentina declared war on the Axis powers a month before the end of World War II in Europe. The Minister of Welfare, Juan Domingo Perón, was fired and jailed because of his high popularity among workers. His liberation was forced by a massive popular demonstration, and he went on to win the 1946 election. Peronist years. Perón created a political movement known as Peronism. He nationalized strategic industries and services, improved wages and working conditions, paid the full external debt and achieved nearly full employment. The economy, however, began to decline in 1950 because of over-expenditure. His highly popular wife, Eva Perón, played a central political role. She pushed Congress to enact women's suffrage in 1947, and developed an unprecedented social assistance to the most vulnerable sectors of society. However, her declining health did not allow her to run for the vice presidency in 1951, and she died of cancer the following year. Perón was re-elected in 1951, surpassing even his 1946 performance. In 1955, the Navy bombed the Plaza de Mayo in an ill-fated attempt to kill the president. A few months later, during the self-called Liberating Revolution coup, he resigned and went into exile in Spain. The new head of state, Pedro Eugenio Aramburu, proscribed Peronism and banned all of its manifestations. Nevertheless, Peronists kept an organized underground. Arturo Frondizi from the UCR won the following elections. He encouraged investment to achieve energetic and industrial self-sufficiency, reversed a chronic trade deficit and lifted Peronism proscription. Yet his efforts to stay on good terms with Peronists and the military earned him the rejection of both, and a new coup forced him out. But Senate Chief José María Guaidó reacted swiftly and applied the anti-power vacuum legislation, becoming president instead. Elections were repealed and Peronism proscribed again. Arturo Illia was elected in 1963 and led to an overall increase in prosperity. However, his attempts to legalize Peronism resulted in his overthrow in 1966 by the Juan Carlos Onganía-led coup d'état called the Argentine Revolution, creating a new military government that sought to rule indefinitely. Military dictatorship. The Dirty War and defeat in the Falklands War. The Dirty War, Spanish, Guerra Sucia, was part of Operation Condor, which included participation of the right-wing dictatorships of the Southern Cone. The Dirty War involved state terrorism in Argentina and elsewhere in the Southern Cone against political dissidents, with military and security forces employing urban and rural violence against left-wing guerrillas, political dissidents, and anyone believed to be associated with socialism or somehow contrary to the neoliberal economic policies of the regime. Victims of the violence in Argentina alone included an estimated 15,000 to 30,000 left-wing activists and militants, including trade unionists, students, journalists, Marxists, Peronist guerrillas and alleged sympathizers. Most were victims of state terrorism. The guerrillas, whose number of victims are nearly 500 to 540 between military and police officials and up to 230 civilians. Argentina received technical support and military aid from the United States government during the Johnson, Nixon, Ford, Carter, and Reagan administrations. Raúl Alfonsín, first democratically elected president following the military government, declassified documents of the Chilean secret police cite an official estimate by the Batallón de Inteligencia 601 of 22,000 killed or disappeared between 1975 and mid-1978. During this period, in which it was later revealed 8,625 disappeared, in the form of PEN, Poder Ejecutivo Nacional, anglicized as National Executive Power, detainees who were held in clandestine detention camps throughout Argentina before eventually being freed under diplomatic pressure. The number of people believed to have been killed or disappeared, depending on the source, ranged from 9,089 to 30,000 in the period from 1976 to 1983, when the military was forced from power following Argentina's defeat in the Falklands War. The National Commission on the Disappearance of Persons estimates that around 13,000 were disappeared. After democratic government was restored, Congress passed legislation to provide compensation to victims' families. Some 11,000 Argentines have applied to the relevant authorities and received up to $200,000 each as monetary compensation for the murder of loved ones during the military dictatorship. The exact chronology of the repression is still debated, however, as in some senses the long political war started in 1969. Trade unionists were targeted for assassination by the Peronist and Marxist paramilitaries as early as 1969, and individual cases of state-sponsored terrorism against Peronism and the left can be traced back to the bombing of Plaza de Mayo in 1955. The Trelew Massacre of 1972, the actions of the Argentine Anti-Communist Alliance since 1973, and Isabel Martínez de Perón's annihilation decrees against left-wing guerrillas during Operativo Independencia, translates to Operation of Independence, in 1975, have also been suggested as dates for the beginning of the Dirty War. Onganía shut down Congress, banned all political parties and dismantled student and worker unions. In 1969, popular discontent led to two massive protests, the Cordobazo and the Rosariazo. The terrorist guerrilla organization Montoneros kidnapped and executed Aramburu. The newly chosen head of government, Alejandro Agustín Lana, seeking to ease the growing political pressure, let Héctor José Campora be the Peronist candidate instead of Perón. Campora won the March 1973 election, issued a pardon for condemned guerrilla members and then secured Perón's return from his exile in Spain. On the day Perón returned to Argentina, the clash between Peronist internal factions, right-wing union leaders and left-wing youth from Montoneros, resulted in the Ezeiza massacre. Campora resigned, overwhelmed by political violence, and Perón won the September 1973 election with his third wife Isabel as vice president. He expelled Montoneros from the party and they became once again a clandestine organization. José López Rega organized the Argentine Anti-Communist Alliance, AAA, to fight against them and the People's Revolutionary Army, ERP. Perón died in July 1974 and was succeeded by his wife, who signed a secret decree empowering the military and the police to annihilate the left-wing subversion, stopping GERB's attempt to start a rural insurgence in Tucumán province. Isabel Perón was ousted 1 year later by a junta of the Three Armed Forces, led by Army General Jorge Rafael Videla. They initiated the national reorganization process, often shortened to Proceso. Argentinian troops being made to clear their trash from the streets of Port Stanley after their surrender in 1982. The Proceso shut down Congress, removed the judges of the Supreme Court, banned political parties and unions, and resorted to the forced disappearance of suspected guerrilla members and of anyone believed to be associated with the left wing. By the end of 1976, Montoneros had lost near 2,000 members. By 1977, the ERP was completely defeated. A severely weakened Montoneros launched a counterattack in 1979, which was quickly annihilated, ending the guerrilla threat. Nevertheless, the junta stayed in power. In 1982, the then head of state, General Leopoldo Galtieri, authorized the invasion of the British territories of South Georgia and, on the 2nd of April, of the Falkland Islands. This led to the Falklands War with the United Kingdom and an Argentinian surrender on the 14th of June. Rioting on the streets of Buenos Aires followed the defeat and the military leadership responsible for the humiliation stood down. Reinaldo Bignoni replaced Galtieri and began to organize the transition to democratic rule. 20th, 21st centuries, Kirchner era, main articles, Argentine economic crisis, 1999 to 2002, and Kirchnerism, photograph of Cristina Kirchner. Cristina Fernández and Néstor Kirchner occupied the presidency of Argentina for 12 years, him from 2003 to 2007 and her from 2007 to 2015. Raúl Alfonsín won the 1983 elections campaigning for the prosecution of those responsible for human rights violations during the Proceso. The trial of the juntas and other martial courts sentenced all the coup's leaders but, under military pressure, he also enacted the full stop on due obedience laws, which halted prosecutions further down the chain of command. The worsening economic crisis and hyperinflation reduced his popular support and the Peronist Carlos Menem won the 1989 election. Soon after, riots forced Alfonsín to an early resignation. Menem embraced neoliberal policies, a fixed exchange rate, business deregulation, privatizations and dismantling of protectionist barriers normalized the economy for a while. He pardoned the officers who had been sentenced during Alfonsín's government. The 1994 constitutional amendment allowed Menem to be elected for a second term. The economy began to decline in 1995, with increasing unemployment and recession. Led by Fernando de la Rúa, the UCR returned to the presidency in the 1999 elections. Mauricio Macri, incumbent president of Argentina, de la Rua kept Menem's economic plan despite the worsening crisis, which led to growing social discontent. A massive capital flight was responded to with a freezing of bank accounts, generating further turmoil. The December 2001 riots forced him to resign. Congress appointed Eduardo Duhalde as acting president, who abrogated the fixed exchange rate established by Menem, causing many Argentinians to lose a significant portion of their savings. By the late 2000s, the economic crisis began to recede, but the assassination of two piqueteros by the police caused political commotion, prompting Duhalde to move elections forward. Néstor Kirchner was elected as the new president. Boosting the neo-Keynesian economic policies laid by Duhalde, Kirchner ended the economic crisis, attaining significant fiscal and trade surpluses, and steep GDP growth. Under his administration, Argentina restructured its defaulted debt with an unprecedented discount of about 70% on most bonds, paid off debts with the International Monetary Fund, purged the military of officers with doubtful human rights records, nullified and voided the full stop undue obedience laws, ruled them as unconstitutional, and resumed legal prosecution of the junta's crimes. He did not run for re-election, promoting instead the candidacy of his wife, Senator Cristina Fernández de Kirchner, who was elected in 2007 and re-elected in 2011. Fernández de Kirchner's administration oversaw a positive foreign policy with good relations with other South American nations. However, relations between the United States and United Kingdom remained heavily strained. Jorge Rafael Videla, who had led the repression during the Dirty War, was sentenced to life in a civilian prison in 2010 under de Kirchner's administration. He later died in prison in 2013. On the 22nd of November 2015, after a tie in the first round of presidential elections on the 25th of October, Mauricio Macri won the first ballotage in Argentina's history, beating Front for Victory candidate Daniel Scioli and becoming president-elect. Macri is the first democratically elected non-radical or Peronist president since 1916. He took office on the 10th of December 2015. In April 2016, the Macri government introduced austerity measures intended to tackle inflation and public deficits. Geography. Aconcagua is the highest mountain outside of Asia, at 6,960.8 meters, 22,837 feet, and the highest point in the southern hemisphere, with a mainland surface area of 2,780,400 km2, 1,073,518 square miles. Argentina is located in southern South America, sharing land borders with Chile across the Andes to the west, Bolivia and Paraguay to the north, Brazil to the northeast, Uruguay and the South Atlantic Ocean to the east, and the Drake Passage to the south, for an overall land border length of 9,376 kilometers, 5,826 miles. Its coastal border over the Rio de la Plata and South Atlantic Ocean is 5,117 kilometers, 3,180 miles, long. Argentina's highest point is Aconcagua in the Mendoza province, 6,959 m, 22,831 feet, above sea level, also the highest point in the southern and western hemispheres. The lowest point is Laguna del Carbon in the San Julian Great Depression, Santa Cruz province, -105 m, -344 feet, below sea level, also the lowest point in the southern and western hemispheres, and the seventh lowest point on Earth. The northernmost point is at the confluence of the Grande de San Juan and Rio Muginete rivers in Jujuy province. The southernmost is Cape San Pio in Tierra del Fuego province. The easternmost is northeast of Bernardo de Irigoyen, Miranda, and the westernmost is within Los Glaciares National Park in Santa Cruz province. The maximum north-south distance is 3,694 kilometers, 2,295 miles, while the maximum east-west one is 1,423 kilometers, 884 miles. Argentina features geographical locations such as this glacier, known as the Perito Moreno Glacier. Some of the major rivers are the Parana, Uruguay, which join to form the Rio de la Plata, Paraguay, Salado, Negro, Santa Cruz, Pilcomayo, Bermejo and Colorado. These rivers are discharged into the Argentine Sea, the shallow area of the Atlantic Ocean over the Argentine shelf, an unusually wide continental platform. Its waters are influenced by two major ocean currents, the warm Brazil Current and the cold Falklands Current. Biodiversity, left to right, a Argentine dogo, a jaguar, a Andean condor, and Magellanic penguins. Argentina is a megadiverse country, hosting one of the greatest ecosystem varieties in the world. 15 continental zones, 3 oceanic zones, and the Antarctic region are all represented in its territory. This huge ecosystem variety has led to a biological diversity that is among the world's largest. 9,372 catalogued vascular plant species, ranked 24th. 1,038 catalogued bird species, ranked 14th. 375 catalogued mammal species, ranked 12th. 338 catalogued reptilian species, ranked 16th. 162 catalogued amphibian species, ranked 19th. The original pampa had virtually no trees. Some imported species like the American sycamore or eucalyptus are present along roads or in towns and country estates. Estancias. The only tree-like plant native to the pampa is the evergreen ombu. The surface soils of the pampa are a deep black color, primarily mollysoils, known commonly as humus. This makes the region one of the most agriculturally productive on Earth. However, this is also responsible for decimating much of the original ecosystem to make way for commercial agriculture. The western pampas receive less rainfall. This dry pampa is a plain of short grasses or steppe. The national parks of Argentina make up a network of 35 national parks in Argentina. The parks cover a very varied set of terrains and biotopes, from Bari 2 National Park on the northern border with Bolivia to Tierra del Fuego National Park in the far south of the continent. The Administración de Parques Nacionales, National Parks Administration, is the agency that preserves and manages these national parks along with natural monuments and national reserves within the country. Climate. Main articles. Climate of Argentina and climatic regions of Argentina. Köppen-Geiger climate classification map for Argentina. In general, Argentina has 4 main climate types: warm, moderate, arid, and cold, all determined by the expanse across latitude, range in altitude, and relief features. Although the most populated areas are generally temperate, Argentina has an exceptional amount of climate diversity, ranging from subtropical in the north to polar in the far south. Consequently, there is a wide variety of biomes in the country, including subtropical rainforests, semi-arid and arid regions, temperate plains in the pampas, and cold subantarctic in the south. The average annual precipitation ranges from 150 mm, 6 in the driest parts of Patagonia to over 2,000 mm, 79 in the westernmost parts of Patagonia and the northeastern parts of the country. Mean annual temperatures range from 5 degrees C, 41 degrees F, in the far south to 25 degrees C, 77 degrees F, in the north. Major wind currents include the cool Pampero winds blowing on the flat plains of Patagonia and the Pampas. Following the cold front, warm currents blow from the north in middle and late winter, creating mild conditions. The Sudestar usually moderates cold temperatures but brings very heavy rains, rough seas and coastal flooding. It is most common in late autumn and winter along the central coast and in the Rio de la Plata estuary. The Zonda, a hot dry wind, affects Cuyo and the central Pampas. Squeezed for moisture during the 6,000 m, 19,685 feet, descent from the Andes. Zonda winds can blow for hours with gusts up to 120 km per hour, 75 miles per hour, fueling wildfires and causing damage. Between June and November, when the Zonda blows, snowstorms and blizzard, viento blanco, conditions usually affect higher elevations. Politics. Government. Main articles. Government of Argentina and Ministries of the Argentine Republic. Casa Rosada, workplace of the President. Argentina is a federal constitutional republic and representative democracy. The government is regulated by a system of checks and balances defined by the Constitution of Argentina, the country's supreme legal document. The seat of government is the city of Buenos Aires, as designated by Congress. Suffrage is universal, equal, secret and mandatory. The federal government is composed of 3 branches. The legislative branch consists of the bicameral Congress, made up of the Senate and deputy chambers, which makes federal law, declares war, approves treaties and has the power of the purse and of impeachment, by which it can remove sitting members of the government. The Chamber of Deputies represents the people and has 257 voting members elected to a 4-year term. Seats are apportioned among the provinces by population every 10th year. As of 2014, 10 provinces have just 5 deputies, while the Buenos Aires province, being the most populous one, has 70. The Chamber of Senators represents the provinces, has 72 members elected at large to 6-year terms, with each province having 3 seats. 1/3 of Senate seats are up for election every other year. At least 1/3 of the candidates presented by the parties must be women. In the executive branch, the president is the commander-in-chief of the military, can veto legislative bills before they become law, subject to congressional override, and appoints the members of the cabinet and other officers, who administer and enforce federal laws and policies. The president is elected directly by the vote of the people, serves a 4-year term and may be elected to office no more than twice in a row. The judicial branch includes the Supreme Court, and lower federal courts interpret laws and overturn those they find unconstitutional. The judicial is independent of the executive and the legislative. The Supreme Court has 7 members appointed by the President, subject to Senate approval, who serve for life. The lower court's judges are proposed by the Council of Magistrates, a secretariat composed of representatives of judges, lawyers, researchers, the executive and the legislative, and appointed by the President on Senate approval. The Palace of the Argentine National Congress, seat of the National Congress composed of the Senate and the Chamber of Deputies. Provinces. See also, List of Argentine provinces by population. Provinces of Argentina. Click to explore. About this image, Argentina is a federation of 23 provinces in one autonomous city, Buenos Aires. Provinces are divided for administration purposes into departments and municipalities, except for Buenos Aires province, which is divided into partidos. The city of Buenos Aires is divided into communes. Provinces hold all the power that they chose not to delegate to the federal government. They must be representative republics and must not contradict the constitution. Beyond this, they are fully autonomous. They enact their own constitutions, freely organize their local governments, and own and manage their natural and financial resources. Some provinces have bicameral legislatures, while others have unicameral ones. During the War of Independence, the main cities and their surrounding countrysides became provinces through the intervention of their cabildos. The anarchy of the year the 20th completed this process, shaping the original 13 provinces. Jujuy seceded from Salto in 1834, and the 13 provinces became 14. After seceding for a decade, Buenos Aires accepted the 1853 Constitution of Argentina in 1861, and was made a federal territory in 1880. And 1862 law designated as national territories those under federal control but outside the frontiers of the provinces. In 1884 they served as bases for the establishment of the governorates of Misiones, Formosa, Chaco, La Pampa, Neuquén, Rio Negro, Chubut, Santa Cruz and Tierra del Fuego. The agreement about a frontier dispute with Chile in 1900 created the national territory of Los Andes. Its lands were incorporated into Jujuy, Salto and Catamarca in 1943. La Pampa and Chaco became provinces in 1951. Misiones did so in 1953, and Formosa, Neuquén, Rio Negro, Chubut and Santa Cruz, in 1955. The last national territory, Tierra del Fuego, became the Tierra del Fuego, Antártida y Islas del Atlántico Sur province in 1990. Foreign relations. Presidents all standing together. Argentina is one of G20 major economies. Foreign policy is officially handled by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, International Trade and Worship, which answers to the President. And historical and current middle power. Argentina bases its foreign policies on the guiding principles of non-intervention, human rights, self-determination, international cooperation, disarmament and peaceful settlement of conflicts. The country is one of the G15 and G20 major economies of the world, and a founding member of the UN, WTO and OAS. In 2012, Argentina was elected again to a 2-year non-permanent position on the United Nations Security Council and is participating in major peacekeeping operations in Haiti, Cyprus, Western Sahara and the Middle East. A prominent Latin American and Southern Cone regional power, Argentina co-founded OEI, CELAC and NASA, of which the former President Néstor Kirchner was first Secretary General. It is also a founding member of the Mercosur bloc, having Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay and Venezuela as partners. Since 2002, the country has emphasized its key role in Latin American integration, and the bloc, which has some supranational legislative functions, is its first international priority. Argentina claims 965,597 372,819 square miles in Antarctica, where it has the world's oldest continuous state presence, since 1904. This overlaps claims by Chile and the United Kingdom, though all such claims fall under the provisions of the 1961 Antarctic Treaty, of which Argentina is a founding signatory and permanent consulting member, with the Antarctic Treaty Secretariat being based in Buenos Aires. Argentina disputes sovereignty over the Falkland Islands, Spanish, Islas Malvinas, and South Georgia and the South Sandwich Islands, which are administered by the United Kingdom as overseas territories. Armed Forces, Argentine Army. The President holds the title of Commander-in-Chief of the Argentine Armed Forces, as part of a legal framework that imposes a strict separation between national defense and internal security systems. The National Defense System, an exclusive responsibility of the federal government, coordinated by the Ministry of Defense, and comprising the Army, the Navy and the Air Force. Ruled and monitored by Congress through the House's defense committees, it is organized on the essential principle of legitimate self-defense, the repelling of any external military aggression in order to guarantee freedom of the people, national sovereignty, and territorial integrity. Its secondary missions include committing to multinational operations within the framework of the United Nations, participating in internal support missions, assisting friendly countries, and establishing a sub-regional defense system. Argentine destroyer Almirante Brown, D-10. Military service is voluntary, with enlistment aged between 18 and 24 years old and no conscription. Argentina's defense has historically been one of the best equipped in the region, even managing its own weapon research facilities, shipyards, ordnance, tank and plane factories. However, real military expenditures declined steadily after 1981, and the defense budget in 2011 was about 0.74% of GDP, a historical minimum, below the Latin American average. The Interior Security System, jointly administered by the federal and subscribing provincial governments. At the federal level, it is coordinated by the Interior, Security and Justice Ministries, and monitored by Congress. It is enforced by the federal police, the prefecture, which fulfills Coast Guard duties, the Gendarmerie, which serves border guard tasks, and the Airport Security Police. At the provincial level, it is coordinated by the respective internal security ministries and enforced by local police agencies. Argentina was the only South American country to send warships and cargo planes in 1991 to the Gulf War under UN mandate, and has remained involved in peacekeeping efforts in multiple locations like UPRO-4 in Croatia/Bosnia, Gulf of Fonseca, and FASIB in Cyprus, where among Army and Marines troops the Air Force provided the UN air contingent since 1994, and MINUSTA in Haiti. Argentina is the only Latin American country to maintain troops in Kosovo during SFOR, and later UFA, operations where combat engineers of the Argentine Armed Forces are embedded in an Italian brigade. In 2007, an Argentine contingent including helicopters, boats and water purification plants was sent to help Bolivia against their worst floods in decades. In 2010, the armed forces were also involved in Haiti and Chile humanitarian responses after their respective earthquakes. Economy. See also, Argentine foreign trade field. Argentine agriculture is relatively capital intensive, today providing about 7% of all employment. Benefiting from rich natural resources, a highly literate population, a diversified industrial base, and an export-oriented agricultural sector, the economy of Argentina is Latin America's third largest, and the second largest in South America. It has a very high rating on the Human Development Index and a relatively high GDP per capita, with a considerable internal market size and a growing share of the high-tech sector. Oil driller. YPF Petroleum Perforation in General Roca, Rio Negro Province, a middle-emerging economy and one of the world's top developing nations. Argentina is a member of the G20 major economies. Historically, however, its economic performance has been very uneven, with high economic growth alternating with severe recessions, income maldistribution and, in the recent decades, increasing poverty. Early in the 20th century, Argentina achieved development, and became the world's seventh richest country. Although managing to keep a place among the top 15 economies until mid-century, it suffered a long and steady decline, but it is still a high-income country. High inflation, a weakness of the Argentine economy for decades, has become a trouble once again, with an annual rate of 24.8% in 2017. Income distribution, having improved since 2002, is classified as medium, still considerably unequal. Argentina ranks 85th out of 180 countries in the Transparency International's 2017 Corruption Perceptions Index, an improvement of 22 positions over its 2014 rankings. Argentina settled its long-standing debt default crisis in 2016 with the so-called vulture funds after the election of Mauricio Macri, allowing Argentina to enter capital markets for the first time in a decade. Industry. Atocha nuclear power plant was the first nuclear power plant in Latin America. The electricity comes from 3 operational nuclear reactors, the Embels nuclear power station, the Atocha Iron II. In 2012, manufacturing accounted for 20.3% of GDP, the largest goods-producing sector in the nation's economy. Well integrated into Argentine agriculture, half of the industrial exports of rural origin. With a 6.5% production growth rate in 2011, the diversified manufacturing sector rests on a steadily growing network of industrial parks, 314 as of 2013. In 2012, the leading sectors by volume were food processing, beverages and tobacco products, motor vehicles and auto parts, textiles and leather, refinery products and biodiesel, chemicals and pharmaceuticals, steel, aluminum and iron, industrial and farm machinery, home appliances and furniture, plastics and tires, glass and cement, and recording and print media. In addition, Argentina has since long been one of the top 5 wine-producing countries in the world. However, it has also been classified as one of the 74 countries where instances of child labor and forced labor have been observed and mentioned in a 2014 report published by the Bureau of International Labor Affairs. The ILAB's list of goods produced by child labor or forced labor shows that many of the goods produced by child labor or forced labor comes from the agricultural sector. Córdoba is Argentina's major industrial center, hosting metalworking, motor vehicle and auto parts manufacturers. Next in importance are the Greater Buenos Aires area, food processing, metallurgy, motor vehicles and auto parts, chemicals and petrochemicals, consumer durables, textiles and printing, Rosario, food processing, metallurgy, farm machinery, oil refining, chemicals, and tanning, San Miguel de Tucumán, sugar refining, San Lorenzo, chemicals and pharmaceuticals, San Nicolas de los Arroyos, steel milling and metallurgy, and Ushuaia and Bahia Blanca, oil refining. Other manufacturing enterprises are located in the provinces of Santa Fe, zinc and copper smelting, and flour milling, Mendoza and Neuquén, wineries and fruit processing, Chaco, textiles and sawmills, and Santa Cruz, Salta and Chubut, oil refining. The electric output of Argentina in 2009 totaled over 122 to 440 pj, of which about 37% was consumed by industrial activities. Transport. Ministro Pistarini International Airport opened in 1949. Argentina has the largest railway system in Latin America, with 36,966 kilometers, 22,970 miles, of operating lines in 2008, out of a full network of almost 48,000 kilometers, 29,826 miles. This system links all 23 provinces plus Buenos Aires city, and connects with all neighboring countries. There are 4 incompatible gauges in use. This forces virtually all interregional freight traffic to pass through Buenos Aires. The system has been in decline since the 1940s, regularly running up large budgetary deficits. By 1991 it was transporting 1,400 times less goods than it did in 1973. However, in recent years the system has experienced a greater degree of investment from the state, in both commuter rail lines and long-distance lines, renewing rolling stock and infrastructure. In April 2015, by overwhelming majority the Argentine Senate passed a law which recreated Ferrocarriles Argentinos, 2015, effectively renationalizing the country's railways, a move which saw support from all major political parties on both sides of the political spectrum. Argentina Rail Passenger Services, Interactive Map, Underground Railway. Buenos Aires Underground is the first underground railway in Latin America, the Southern Hemisphere and the Spanish-speaking world. By 2004 Buenos Aires, all provincial capitals except Ushuaia, and all medium-sized towns were interconnected by 69,412 kilometers, 43,131 miles, of paved roads, out of a total road network of 231,374 kilometers, 143,769 miles. Most important cities are linked by a growing number of expressways, including Buenos Aires La Plata, Rosario Córdoba, Córdoba Villa Carlos Paz, Villa Mercedes Mendoza, National Route 14 General José Gervasio Artigas and Provincial Route 2 Juan Manuel Fangio, among others. Nevertheless, this road infrastructure is still inadequate and cannot handle the sharply growing demand caused by deterioration of the railway system. In 2012 there were about 11,000 kilometers, 6,835 miles, of waterways, mostly comprising the La Plata, Paraná, Paraguay and Uruguay rivers, with Buenos Aires, Zarate, Campana, Rosario, San Lorenzo, Santa Fe, Barranqueras and San Nicolas de los Arroyos as the main fluvial ports. Some of the largest seaports are La Plata, Ensenada, Bahia Blanca, Mar del Plata, Quequenicochea, Comodoro Rivadavia, Puerto Derrido, Puerto Madryn, Ushuaia and San Antonio Oeste. Buenos Aires has historically been the most important port. However, since the 1990s the upriver port region has become dominant, stretching along 67 kilometers, 42 miles, of the Paraná River shore in Santa Fe province. It includes 17 ports and in 2013 accounted for 50% of all exports. In 2013 there were 161 airports with paved runways out of more than 1,000. The Ezeiza International Airport, about 35 kilometers, 22 miles, from downtown Buenos Aires, is the largest in the country, followed by Cataratas del Iguazu in Misiones, and El Palmeralo in Mendoza. Aeropar, in the city of Buenos Aires, is the most important domestic airport. Media and Communications. Estudio Pays 24, the program of the Argentines, in Channel 7, the first television station in the country. Print media industry is highly developed in Argentina, with more than 200 newspapers. The major national ones include Clarín, Centrist, Latin America's bestseller and the second most widely circulated in the Spanish-speaking world, La Nación, center-right, published since 1870, Pagina/12, leftist, founded in 1987, the Buenos Aires Herald, Latin America's most prestigious English-language daily, liberal, dating back to 1876, La Voz del Interior, center, founded in 1904, and the Argentinisches Tageblatt, German weekly, liberal, published since 1878. Argentina began the world's first regular radio broadcasting on the 27th of August 1920, when Richard Wagner's Parsifal was aired by a team of medical students led by Enrique Telemarco Susini and Buenos Aires Teatro Coliseo. By 2000 there were 260 AM and 1,150 FM registered radio stations in the country. The Argentine television industry is large, diverse and popular across Latin America, with many productions and TV formats having been exported abroad. Since 1999, Argentines enjoy the highest availability of cable and satellite television in Latin America, as of 2014 totaling 87.4% of the country's households, a rate similar to those in the United States, Canada and Europe. By 2011, Argentina also had the highest coverage of network telecommunications among Latin American powers. About 67% of its population had internet access and 137.2% mobile phone subscriptions. Science and Technology. Satellite launching. SAC-D is an Argentine Earth science satellite built by INVAP and launched in 2011. Argentinians have received 3 Nobel Prizes in the sciences. Bernardo Houssay, the first Latin American recipient, discovered the role of pituitary hormones in regulating glucose in animals, and shared the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 1947. Luis Lalois discovered how organisms store energy converting glucose into glycogen and the compounds which are fundamental in metabolizing carbohydrates, receiving the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1970. Cesar Milstein did extensive research in antibodies, sharing the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 1984. Argentine research has led to treatments for heart diseases and several forms of cancer. Domingo Leotta designed and developed the first artificial heart that was successfully implanted in a human being in 1969. René Favaloro developed the techniques and performed the world's first coronary bypass surgery. Argentina's nuclear program has been highly successful. In 1957, Argentina was the first country in Latin America to design and build a research reactor with homegrown technology, the Ra-1 Enrico Fermi. This reliance in the development of own nuclear-related technologies, instead of simply buying them abroad, was a constant of Argentina's nuclear program conducted by the Civilian National Atomic Energy Commission, CNEA. Nuclear facilities with Argentine technology have been built in Peru, Algeria, Australia and Egypt. In 1983, the country admitted having the capability of producing weapon-grade uranium, a major step needed to assemble nuclear weapons. Since then, however, Argentina has pledged to use nuclear power only for peaceful purposes. As a member of the Board of Governors of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Argentina has been a strong voice in support of nuclear non-proliferation efforts and is highly committed to global nuclear security. In 1974, it was the first country in Latin America to put in line a commercial nuclear power plant, at Ucay. Although the Argentine built parts for that station amounted to 10% of the total, the nuclear fuel it uses are since entirely built in the country. Later nuclear power stations employed a higher percentage of Argentine-built components, Enbals, finished in 1983, a 30%, and the 2011 Atocha the second reactor a 40%. Team of astronauts, President Macri and the INVAP with the SAOCMA and B-2 planned Earth observation satellite constellation of Argentine Space Agency, CON-A. The scheduled launch dates for 1A and 1B were further pushed back to October 2017 and October 2018. Despite its modest budget and numerous setbacks, academics and the sciences in Argentina have enjoyed an international respect since the turn of the 1900s, when Dr. Luis Agot devised the first safe and effective means of blood transfusion, as well as René Favaloro, who was a pioneer in the improvement of the coronary artery bypass surgery. Argentine scientists are still on the cutting edge in fields such as nanotechnology, physics, computer sciences, molecular biology, oncology, ecology and cardiology. Juan Maldacena, an Argentine-American scientist, is a leading figure in string theory. Space research has also become increasingly active in Argentina. Argentine-built satellites include Lucet 1, 1990, Victor 1, 1996, Behunsat-1, 2007, and those developed by CONA, the Argentine Space Agency, of the SAC series. Argentina has its own satellite program, nuclear power station designs, fourth generation, and public nuclear energy company INVAP, which provides several countries with nuclear reactors. Established in 1991, the CONA has since launched 2 satellites successfully and, in June 2009, secured an agreement with the European Space Agency for the installation of a 35 m diameter antenna in other mission support facilities at the Pierre Auger Observatory, the world's foremost cosmic ray observatory. The facility will contribute to numerous ESA space probes, as well as CONA's own domestic research projects. Chosen from 20 potential sites and one of only 3 such ESA installations in the world, the new antenna will create a triangulation which will allow the ESA to ensure mission coverage around the clock. Tourism in Argentina is characterized by its cultural offerings and its ample and varied natural assets. The country had 5.57 million visitors in 2013, ranking in terms of the international tourist arrivals as the top destination in South America and second in Latin America after Mexico. Revenues from international tourists reached $4.41 billion in 2013, down from $4.89 billion in 2012. The country's capital city, Buenos Aires, is the most visited city in South America. There are 30 national parks of Argentina, including many World Heritage Sites. The Iguazu Falls, in Misiones province. It is one of the new 7 wonders of nature. Demographics. See also, Argentines, buildings, Balvanera, Buenos Aires, filled with picturesque Dutch-style tenements. In the 2001 census, Argentina had a population of 36,260,130, and preliminary results from the 2010 census were of 40,091,359 inhabitants. Argentina ranks 3rd in South America in total population and 33rd globally. Population density is of 15 persons per square kilometre of land area, well below the world average of 50 persons. The population growth rate in 2010 was an estimated 1.03% annually, with a birth rate of 17.7 live births per 1,000 inhabitants and a mortality rate of 7.4 deaths per 1,000 inhabitants. The net migration rate has ranged from 0 to 4 immigrants per 1,000 inhabitants per year. The proportion of people under 15 is 25.6%, a little below the world average of 28%, and the proportion of people 65 and older is relatively high at 10.8%. In Latin America this is second only to Uruguay and well above the world average, which is currently 7%. Argentina has one of Latin America's lowest population growth rates, recently about 1% a year, as well as a comparatively low infant mortality rate. Its birth rate of 2.3 children per woman is still nearly twice as high as that in Spain or Italy, compared here as they have similar religious practices and proportions. The median age is approximately 30 years and life expectancy at birth is 77.14 years. Argentina became in 2010 the first country in Latin America and the second in the Americas to allow same-sex marriage nationwide. It was the 10th country to allow same-sex marriage. Ethnography. Main articles. Ethnography of Argentina and immigration to Argentina. Queen Maxima was born and raised in Argentina of Spanish and Italian descent. Over 25 million, or 62.5% of Argentina's population have at least one Italian immigrant ancestor, as with other areas of new settlement such as the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Brazil and Uruguay. Argentina is considered a country of immigrants. Argentines usually refer to the country as a crisol de razas, crucible of races, or melting pot. Between 1857 and 1950 Argentina was the country with the second biggest immigration wave in the world, with 6.6 million, second only to the United States in the numbers of immigrants received, 27 million, and ahead of such other areas of new settlement like Canada, Brazil and Australia. Strikingly, at those times, the national population doubled every 2 decades. This belief is enjoyed in the popular saying, Los Argentinos descienden de los barcos, Argentines descend from the ships. Therefore, most Argentines are descended from the 19th and 20th century immigrants of the Great Immigration Wave to Argentina, 1850 to 1955, with a great majority of these immigrants coming from diverse European countries. The majority of these European immigrants came from Italy and Spain. The majority of Argentines descend from multiple European ethnic groups, primarily of Italian and Spanish descent. Over 25 million individuals in Argentina, almost 60% of the population have some partial Italian origins. Argentina is home to a significant population of Arab and partial Arab background, mostly of Syrian and Lebanese origin. In Argentina they are considered among the white people, just like in the United States Census. The majority of Arab Argentines are Christians who belong to the Maronite Church, Roman Catholic, Eastern Orthodox and Eastern Rite Catholic churches. A scant number are Muslims of Middle Eastern origins. The Asian population in the country numbers at around 180,000 individuals, most of whom are of Chinese and Korean descent, although an older Japanese community that traces back to the early 20th century still exists. A study conducted on 218 individuals in 2010 by the Argentine geneticist Daniel Corrick has established that the genetic map of Argentina is composed by 79% from different European ethnicities, mainly Spanish and Italian ethnicities, 18% of different indigenous ethnicities, and 4.3% of African ethnic groups, in which 63.6% of the tested group had at least one ancestor who was indigenous. From the 1970s, immigration has mostly been coming from Bolivia, Paraguay and Peru, with smaller numbers from Dominican Republic, Ecuador and Romania. The Argentine government estimates that 750,000 inhabitants lack official documents and has launched a program to encourage illegal immigrants to declare their status in return for 2-year residence visas. So far over 670,000 applications have been processed under the program. Genetic studies. Luis Guela, Copocho, Loncote Ehuel Shoawanaikenk, native of the Patagonian region, Argentina. Homberger et al. 2015, PLOS1 Genetics, 67% European, 28% Amerindian, 4% African and 1,4% Asian. Avena et al. 2012, PLOS1 Genetics, 65% European, 31% Amerindian, and 4% African. Buenos Aires Province, 76% European and 24% others. South Zone, Chubut Province, 54% European and 46% others. Northeast Zone, Misiones, Corrientes, Chaco and Formosa Provinces, 54% European and 46% others. Northwest Zone, Salta Province, 33% European and 67% others. Oliveira, 2008, on Universidade de Brasilia, 60% European, 31% Amerindian and 9% African. National Geographic, 52% European, 27% Amerindian ancestry, 9% African and 9% others. Languages. Dialectal variants of the Spanish language in Argentina. The de facto official language is Spanish, spoken by almost all Argentines. The country is the largest Spanish-speaking society that universally employs voseo, the use of the pronoun vos instead of tu, you, which imposes the use of alternative verb forms as well. Due to the extensive Argentine geography, Spanish has a strong variation among regions, although the prevalent dialect is Rioplatense, primarily spoken in the La Plata basin and accented similarly to the Neapolitan language. Italian and other European immigrants influenced Lunfardo, the regional slang, permeating the vernacular vocabulary of other Latin American countries as well. There are several second languages in widespread use among the Argentine population. English, taught since elementary school. 42.3% of Argentines claim to speak it, with 15.4% of them claiming to have a high level of language comprehension. Italian, by 1.5 million people. Arabic, especially its northern Levantine dialect, by 1 million people. Standard German, by 400,000 people. Yiddish, by 200,000 people, the largest Jewish population in Latin America and 7th in the world. Guarani, by 200,000 people, mostly in Corrientes, where it is official de jure, and Misiones. Catalan, by 174,000 people. French, including the rare Occitan language. Quechua, by 65,000 people, mostly in the northwest. Wichi, by 53,700 people, mainly in Chaco, along with common Mocoit, it is official de jure. Vlax Romani, by 52,000 people. Albanian, by 40,000 people. Japanese, by 32,000 people. Aymara, by 30,000 people, mostly in the northwest. Ukrainian, by 27,000 people. Welsh, including its Patagonian dialect, in which 25,000 people are fluent. Some districts have recently incorporated it as an educational language. Religion. Francis, the first pope from the New World, was born and raised in Argentina. Gorchito Gil, left. San La Muerte, right. 2 popular saints on display in Argentina. The Constitution guarantees freedom of religion. Although it enforces neither an official nor a state faith, it gives Roman Catholicism a preferential status. According to a Concept poll in 2008. At the time of polling, Argentines were 76.5% Catholic, 11.3% agnostics and atheists, 9% evangelical Protestants, 1.2% Jehovah's Witnesses, 0.9% Mormons, while 1.2% followed other religions, including Islam, Judaism and Buddhism. These figures appear to have changed quite significantly in recent years. Data recorded in 2017 indicated that Catholics made up 66% of the population, indicating a drop of 10.5% in 9 years, and the non-religious in the country standing at 21% of the population, indicating an almost doubling over 9 years. The country is home to both the largest Muslim and largest Jewish communities in Latin America, the latter being the 7th most populous in the world. Argentina is a member of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. Argentines show high individualization and deinstitutionalization of religious beliefs. 23.8% of them claim to always attend religious services, 49.1% to seldom do and 26.8% to never do. On the 13th of March 2013, Argentine Jorge Mario Bergoglio, the Cardinal Archbishop of Buenos Aires, was elected Bishop of Rome and Supreme Pontiff of the Catholic Church. He took the name Francis, and he became the first pope from either the Americas or from the Southern Hemisphere. He is the first pope born outside of Europe since the election of Pope Gregory III, who was Syrian, in 741. Urbanization. See also, list of cities in Argentina by population. Argentina is highly urbanized, with 92% of its population living in cities. The 10 largest metropolitan areas account for half of the population. About 3 million people live in the city of Buenos Aires, and including the Greater Buenos Aires metropolitan area, it totals around 13 million, making it one of the largest urban areas in the world. The metropolitan areas of Córdoba and Rosario have around 1.3 million inhabitants each. Mendoza, San Miguel de Tucumán, La Plata, Mar del Plata, Salto and Santa Fe have at least 500,000 people each. The population is unequally distributed. About 60% live in the Pampas region, 21% of the total area, including 15 million people in Buenos Aires province. The provinces of Córdoba and Santa Fe, and the city of Buenos Aires have 3 million each. 7 other provinces have over 1 million people each: Mendoza, Tucumán, Entre Rios, Salta, Chaco, Corrientes and Misiones. With 64.3 inhabitants per square kilometre, 167/smi, Tucumán is the only Argentine province more densely populated than the world average. By contrast, the southern province of Santa Cruz has around 1.1/km2, 2.8/smi. Largest cities or towns in Argentina: 1. Buenos Aires, autonomous city, 13,834,000. 2. Córdoba, 1,519,000. 3. Rosario, Santa Fe, 1,429,000. 4. Mendoza, 1,082,000. 5. Tucumán, 868,000. 6. La Plata, Buenos Aires, 836,000. The 7th of March, Del Plata, Buenos Aires, 633,000. 8. Salta, 625,000. 9. Santa Fe, 530,000. 10. San Juan, 513,000. 11. Resistencia, Chaco, 409,000. 12. Santiago del Estero, 406,000. 13. Corrientes, 383,000. 14. Posadas, Misiones, 355,000. 15. San Salvador de Jujuy, 338,000. 16. Neuquén, 309,000. 17. Bahía Blanca, Buenos Aires, 307,000. 18. Parano, Entre Rios, 274,000. 19. Formosa, 258,000. 20. San Luis, 218,000. Education. Argentina has historically been placed high in the global rankings of literacy, with rates similar to those of developed countries. The Argentine education system consists of 4 levels: an initial level for children between 45 days to 5 years old, with the last 2 years being compulsory, and elementary or lower school mandatory level lasting 6 or 7 years. In 2010, the literacy rate was 98.07%, a secondary or high school mandatory level lasting 5 or 6 years. In 2010, 38.5% of people over age 20 had completed secondary school. A higher level, divided in tertiary, university and postgraduate sublevels. In 2013, there were 47 national public universities across the country, as well as 46 private ones. In 2010, 7.1% of people over age 20 had graduated from university. The public universities of Buenos Aires, Córdoba, La Plata, Rosario, and the National Technological University are some of the most important. The Argentine state guarantees universal, secular and free of charge public education for all levels. Responsibility for educational supervision is organized at the federal and individual provincial states. In the last decades, the role of the private sector has grown across all educational stages. Healthcare. The University of Buenos Aires School of Medicine, alma mater to many of the country's 3,000 medical graduates, annually. Healthcare is provided through a combination of employer and labor union-sponsored plans, obras sociales, government insurance plans, public hospitals and clinics, and through private health insurance plans. Healthcare cooperatives number over 300, of which 200 are related to labor unions, and provide healthcare for half the population. The National Institute, popularly known as PAMI, covers nearly all of the 5 million senior citizens. There are more than 153,000 hospital beds, 121,000 physicians and 37,000 dentists, ratios comparable to developed nations. The relatively high access to medical care has historically resulted in mortality patterns and trends similar to developed nations. From 1953 to 2005, deaths from cardiovascular disease increased from 20% to 23% of the total, those from tumors from 14% to 20%, respiratory problems from 7% to 14%, digestive maladies, non-infectious, from 7% to 11%, strokes a steady 7%, injuries, 6%, and infectious diseases, 4%. Causes related to senility led to many of the rest. Infant deaths have fallen from 19% of all deaths in 1953 to 3% in 2005. The availability of healthcare has also reduced infant mortality from 70 per 1,000 live births in 1948 to 12.1 in 2009 and raised life expectancy at birth from 60 years to 76. Though these figures compare favorably with global averages, they fall short of levels in developed nations, and in 2006, Argentina ranked 4th in Latin America. Culture. See also, List of Argentines. Gauchos in Salta City, Argentina. El Ateneo Gran Splendid was named the second most beautiful bookshop in the world by The Guardian. Argentina is a multicultural country with significant European influences. Modern Argentine culture has been largely influenced by Italian, Spanish and other European immigration from France, United Kingdom, and Germany among others. Its cities are largely characterized by both the prevalence of people of European descent and of conscious imitation of American and European styles in fashion, architecture and design. Museums, cinemas, and galleries are abundant in all the large urban centers, as well as traditional establishments such as literary bars, or bars offering live music of a variety of genres, although there are lesser elements of Amerindian and African influences, particularly in the fields of music and art. The other big influence is the Gauchos and their traditional country lifestyle of self-reliance. Finally, indigenous American traditions have been absorbed into the general cultural milieu. Argentine writer Ernesto Sabato has reflected on the nature of the culture of Argentina as follows. With the primitive Hispanic American reality fractured in La Plata Basin due to immigration, its inhabitants have come to be somewhat dual, with all the dangers but also with all the advantages of the condition. Because of our European roots, we deeply link the nation with the enduring values of the Old World. Because of our condition of Americans, we link ourselves to the rest of the continent, through the folklore of the interior and the old Castilian that unifies us, feeling somehow the vocation of the Patria Grande San Martin and Bolivar once imagined. Ernesto Sabato, La Cultura en la Encrucijada Nacional, 1976. Literature. Mosaic image showing the 4 photographs, 4 of the most influential Argentine writers. Top left to bottom right. Julio Cortázar, Victoria Ocampo, Jorge Luis Borges and Adolfo Bárcenas. Although Argentina's rich literary history began around 1550, it reached full independence with Esteban Echeverría El Matadero, a romantic landmark that played a significant role in the development of 19th century's Argentine narrative, split by the ideological divide between the popular, federalist epic of José Hernández, Martin Fierro and the elitist and cultured discourse of Sarmiento's masterpiece, Facundo. The modernist movement advanced into the 20th century, including exponents such as Leopoldo Lugones and poet Alfonsina Storni. It was followed by Vanguardism, with Ricardo Giraldes don Segundo Sombra as an important reference. Jorge Luis Borges, Argentina's most acclaimed writer and one of the foremost figures in the history of literature, found new ways of looking at the modern world in metaphor and philosophical debate, and his influence has extended to authors all over the globe. Short stories such as Fictioner and The Olive are among his most famous works. He was a friend and collaborator of Adolfo Bárcenas, who wrote one of the most praised science fiction novels, The Invention of Morel. Julio Cortázar, one of the leading members of the Latin American boom and a major name in 20th century literature, influenced an entire generation of writers in the Americas and Europe. A remarkable episode in the Argentine literature's history is the social and literary dialectica between the so-called Florida group, named this way because its members used to meet together at the Richmond cafeteria at Florida Street and published in the Martin Fierro magazine, like Jorge Luis Borges, Leopoldo Maracal, Antonio Berni, artist, among others, versus the Bodo group of Roberto Alt, Cesar Tempo, Homero Manzi, tango composer, that used to meet at the Japanese cafe and published their works with the editorial Claridad, with both the cafe and the publisher located at the Bodo Avenue. Other highly regarded Argentine writers, poets and essayists include Estanislao del Campo, Eugenio Cambaceres, Pedro Bonifacio Palacios, Hugo Waste, Benito Lynch, Enrique Banches, Oliverio Girondo, Ezequiel Martinez Estrada, Victoria Ocampo, Leopoldo Maracal, Silvina Ocampo, Roberto Alt, Eduardo Melia, Manuel Mujica Lainez, Ernesto Sarbato, Silvina Bullrich, Rodolfo Walsh, Maria Elena Walsh, Tomas Eloy Martinez, Manuel Puig, Alejandro Pizanic, and Osvaldo Soriano. Music: Daniel Barenboim, music director of the Berlin State Opera. He previously served as music director of the Orchestra di Paris and La Scala in Milan. Mercedes Sosa, tango, a Rioplatense musical genre with European and African influences, is one of Argentina's international cultural symbols. The golden age of tango, 1930 to mid-1950s, mirrored that of jazz and swing in the United States, featuring large orchestras like those of Osvaldo Pugliese, Aníbal Troilo, Francisco Canaro, Julio Di Caro and Juan D'Arienzo. After 1955, Virtuoso Astor Piazzolla popularized nuevo tango, a subtler and more intellectual trend for the genre. Tango enjoys worldwide popularity nowadays with groups like Botan Project, Bajifondo and Tangeto. Argentina developed strong classical music and dance scenes that gave rise to renowned artists such as Alberto Ginastera, composer, Alberto Lissi, violinist, Martha Oderick and Eduardo Delgado, pianists, Daniel Barenboim, pianist and symphonic orchestra director, Jose Curu and Marcelo Alvarez, tenors, and to ballet dancers Jorge Don, Jose Neglia, Norma Fontana, Maximiliano Guerra, Paloma Herrera, Marianela Nunez, Inaki Olazaguan, Julio Boca. Martha Oderick, widely regarded as one of the greatest pianists of the second half of the 20th century, a national Argentine folk style emerged in the 1930s from dozens of regional musical genres and went to influence the entirety of Latin American music. Some of its interpreters, like Atalia Panky and Mercedes Sosa, achieved worldwide acclaim. The romantic ballad genre included singers of international fame such as Sandro de America. Argentine rock developed as a distinct musical style in the mid-1960s, when Buenos Aires and Rosario became cradles of aspiring musicians. Founding bands like Los Gatos, Sui Generis, Almendro and Manal were followed by Ceru Giran, Los Abuelos de la Nada, Soda Stereo and Patricio Reyes Reed and Ditos de Ricota, with prominent artists including Gustavo Cerati, Lito Nebbia, Andres Calamaro, Luis Alberto Spinetta, Charlie Garcia, Vito Paez and Leon Guichco. Tenor saxophonist Leandro Gato, Barbarian composer and big band conductor Lalo Scafarina are among the most internationally successful Argentine jazz musicians. Another popular musical genre at present is cumbia villera, is a subgenre of cumbia music originated in the slums of Argentina and popularized all over Latin America and the Latin communities abroad. Theatre. View of the theatre's stage. Teatro Colón. It is ranked the third best opera house in the world. Buenos Aires is one of the great theatre capitals of the world, with a scene of international caliber centered on Corrientes Avenue, the street that never sleeps, sometimes referred to as an intellectual Broadway in Buenos Aires. Teatro Colón is a global landmark for opera and classical performances. Its acoustics are considered among the world's top 5. Other important theatrical venues include Teatro General San Martin, Cervantes, both in Buenos Aires City, Argentino in La Plata, El Circulo in Rosario, Independencia in Mendoza, and Libertador in Cordoba. Griselda Gambaro, Copi, Roberto Cossa, Marco de Nevi, Carlos Gorostiza, and Alberto Valcarezzo are a few of the most prominent Argentine playwrights. Argentine theatre traces its origins to Viceroy Juan José de Vertés y Salcedo's creation of the colony's first theatre, La Rancheria, in 1783. In this stage, in 1786, a tragedy entitled Siripo had its premiere. Siripo is now a lost work, only the second act is conserved. and can be considered the first Argentine stage play, because it was written by Buenos Aires poet Manuel José de la Arden. It was premiered in Buenos Aires, and its plot was inspired by an historical episode of the early colonization of the Rio de la Plata basin, the destruction of Sancti Spiritu colony by Aboriginals in 1529. La Rancheria Theatre operated until its destruction in a fire in 1792. The second theatre stage in Buenos Aires was Teatro Coliseo, opened in 1804 during the term of Viceroy Rafael de Sobramonte. It was the nation's longest continuously operating stage. The musical creator of the Argentine national anthem, Blas Parera, earned fame as a theatre score writer during the early 19th century. The genre suffered during the regime of Juan Manuel de Rosas, though it flourished alongside the economy later in the century. The national government gave Argentine theatre its initial impulse with the establishment of the Colón Theatre in 1857, which hosted classical and operatic, as well as stage performances. Antonio Petarlado's successful 1871 gambit on the opening of the Teatro Opera inspired others to fund the growing art in Argentina. Cinema. The Argentine film industry has historically been one of the three most developed in Latin American cinema, along with those produced in Mexico and Brazil. Started in 1896, by the early 1930s it had already become Latin America's leading film producer, a place it kept until the early 1950s. The world's first animated feature films were made and released in Argentina by cartoonist Quirino Cristiani in 1917 and 1918, and I Moschetti, director of it, the highest-grossing horror film of all time. Argentine films have achieved worldwide recognition. The country has won 2 Academy Awards for Best Foreign Language Film, with The Official Story, 1985, and The Secret in Their Eyes, 2009, with 7 nominations: The Truce, La Tregua, in 1974, Camilla, in 1984, The Official Story, La Historia Oficial, in 1985, Tango, in 1998, Son of the Bride, El Hijo de la Novia, in 2001, The Secret in Their Eyes, El Secreto de sus Ojos, in 2009, Wild Tales, Relatos Salvajes, in 2015. In addition, Argentine composers Luis Enrique Bacalov and Gustavo Santaolalla have been honored with Academy Award for Best Original Score in 2006 and 2007. Nods and Armando Bo and Nicolas Jacobone have been honored with Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay in 2015. Also, the Argentine-French actress Brenes Bijo received a nomination for the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress in 2011 and won the César Award for Best Actress and won the Best Actress Award in the Cannes Film Festival for her role in the film The Past. Argentina also has won 17 Goya Awards for Best Spanish-Language Foreign Film with The King and His Movie, 1986, A Place in the World, 1992, Gatica, El Mono, 1993, Autumn Sun, 1996, Ashes of Paradise, 1997, The Lighthouse, 1998, Burnt Money, 2000, The Escape, 2001, Intimate Stories, 2003, Blessed by Fire, 2005, The Hands, 2006, Zxai, 2007, The Secret in Their Eyes, 2009, Chinese Takeaway, 2011, Wild Tales, 2014, The Clan, 2015, and The Distinguished Citizen, 2016, being by far the most awarded in Latin America with 24 nominations. Many other Argentine films have been acclaimed by the international critique. Camilla, 1984, Man Facing Southeast, 1986, A Place in the World, 1992, Pizza, Beer, and Cigarettes, 1997, Nine Queens, 2000, A Red Bear, 2002, The Motorcycle Diaries, 2004, The Aura, 2005, Chinese Takeaway, 2011, and Wild Tales, 2014, being some of them. In 2013, about 100 full-length motion pictures were being created annually. Visual arts. See also, Argentine painting. Las Nereidas font by Lola Mora. Some of the best-known Argentine painters are Candido Lopez and Florencio Molina Campos. Naive style. Ernesto de la Carcova and Eduardo Savori. Realism. Fernando Feder. Impressionism. Pio Calivadino, Attilio Malinvano and Cesario Bernardo de Quiros. Post-Impressionism. Emilio Petrucci. Cubism. Julio Barragan. Concretism and Cubism. Antonio Berni. Neo-Figurativism. Roberto Eisenberg and Sola. Surrealism. Gila Koshitsa. Constructivism. Eduardo McIntyre. Generative art. Luis Owain. Carlos Torreladona, Luis Aquino, and Alfredo Gramajo Gutierrez. Modernism, Lucio Fontana. Spatialism, Tomás Maldonado and Guillermo Kutka. Abstract art, Leon Ferrari and Marta Manugin. Conceptual art, and Gustavo Cabral. Fantasy art. In 1946, Gulakoshitzua and others created the Mardi movement in Argentina, which then spread to Europe and the United States, where it had a significant impact. Tomás Maldonado was one of the main theorists of the old model of design education, still highly influential globally. Other Argentine artists of worldwide fame include Adolfo Bellic, whose lithographs have been influential since the 1920s, and Benito Quinquela Martin, the quintessential port painter, inspired by the immigrant-bound La Boca neighborhood. Internationally laureate sculptors Emilio Blotta, Lola Moro and Rogelio Iraocha authored many of the classical evocative monuments of the Argentine cityscape. Architecture, view of Bolivar Street facing the Cabildo and Diagonal Norte, on Buenos Aires Historical Center. The city's characteristic convergence of diverse architectural styles can be seen, including Spanish colonial, Beaux Arts, and modernist architecture. The colonization brought the Spanish Baroque architecture, which can still be appreciated in its simpler Rioplaten style in the reduction of San Ignacio Mini, the Cathedral of Córdoba, and the Cabildo of Luyan. Italian and French influences increased at the beginning of the 19th century with strong eclectic overtones that gave the local architecture a unique feeling. Numerous Argentine architects have enriched their own country's cityscape in those around the world. Juan Antonio Busquiazo helped popularize Beaux Arts architecture, and Francisco Gianotti combined Art Nouveau with Italianate styles, each adding flair to Argentine cities during the early 20th century. Francisco Salomon and Victor Zulcic left an Art Deco legacy, and Alejandro Bustillo created a prolific body of neoclassical and rationalist architecture. Alberto Prebisch and Amancio Williams were highly influenced by Le Corbusier, while Clorindo Testa introduced brutalist architecture locally. Cesar Pelliz and Patricio Pauciola's futurist creations have graced cities worldwide. Belli's 1980s throwbacks to the Art Deco glory of the 1920s made him one of the world's most prestigious architects, with the Norwest Center and the Petronas Towers among his most celebrated creations. Sport, Diego Maradona, one of the FIFA player of the 20th century. Pato is the national sport, an ancient horseback game locally originated in the early 1600s and predecessor of horseball. The most popular sport is football. Along with Brazil and France, the men's national team is the only one to have won the most important international triplet, World Cup, Confederations Cup, and Olympic gold medal. It has also won 14 Copas America, 6 Pan-American gold medals and many other trophies. Alfredo Di Stefano, Diego Maradona and Lionel Messi are among the best players in the game's history. The country's women's field hockey team Las Leonas is one of the world's most successful, with 4 Olympic medals, 2 World Cups, a World League and 7 Champions Trophy. Luciana Aymar is recognized as the best female player in the history of the sport, being the only player to have received the FIH Player of the Year award 8 times. Basketball is a very popular sport. The men's national team is the only one in the FIBA Americas zone that has won the quintuplet crown: World Championship, Olympic gold medal, Diamond Ball, America's Championship, and Pan American gold medal. It has also conquered 13 South American championships, and many other tournaments. Emmanuel Ginobili, Luis Scola, Andres Nosny, Fabricio Oberto, Pablo Prigioni, Carlos Delfino and Juan Ignacio Sanchez are a few of the country's most acclaimed players, all of them part of the NBA. Argentina hosted the Basketball World Cup in 1950 and 1990. Lionel Messi, 5 times FIFA Ballon d'Or winner, is the current captain of the Argentina national football team. Rugby is another popular sport in Argentina. As of 2017, the men's national team, known as Los Pumas, has competed at the Rugby World Cup each time it has been held, achieving their highest ever result in 2007 when they came third. Since 2012, the Los Pumas have competed against Australia, New Zealand and South Africa in the Rugby Championship, the premier international rugby competition in the Southern Hemisphere. Since 2009, the secondary men's national team, known as the Jaguares, has competed against the USA, Canada, and Uruguay first teams in the Americas Rugby Championship, which Los Jaguares have won 6 out of 8 times it has taken place. Argentina has produced some of the most formidable champions for boxing, including Carlos Monzon, the best middleweight in history, Pascual Perez, one of the most decorated flyweight boxers of all times, Horacio Arcavalo, the former WBA and WBC World Flyweight Champion, Victor Gallins, as of 2009 record holder for consecutive World Light Heavyweight title defenses, and Nicolino Loca, nicknamed The Untouchable, for his masterful defense. They are all inductees into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Tennis has been quite popular among people of all ages. Guillermo Vilas is the greatest Latin American player of the Open era, while Gabriela Sabatini is the most accomplished Argentine female player of all time, having reached #3 in the WTA ranking, are both inductees into the International Tennis Hall of Fame. Argentina reigns undisputed in polo, having won more international championships than any other country and been seldom beaten since the 1930s. The Argentine Polo Championship is the sport's most important international team trophy. The country is home to most of the world's top players, among them Adolfo Cambiaso, the best in polo history. Historically, Argentina has had a strong showing within auto racing. Juan Manuel Fangio was 5 times Formula One world champion under 4 different teams, winning 102 of his 184 international races, and is widely ranked as the greatest driver of all time. Other distinguished racers were Oscar Alfredo Galvez, Juan Galvez, Jose Froiland Gonzalez and Carlos Reutemann. Cuisine table with a cut of Argentine beef, wine, sauces and spices. Argentine beef was asado, a traditional dish. Besides many of the pasta, sausage and dessert dishes common to continental Europe, Argentines enjoy a wide variety of indigenous and Criollo creations, including empanadas, a small stuffed pastry, locro, a mixture of corn, beans, meat, bacon, onion, and gourd, humito and mate. The country has the highest consumption of red meat in the world, traditionally prepared as asado, the Argentine barbecue. It is made with various types of meats, often including chorizo, sweetbread, chitlings, and blood sausage. Common desserts include facturas, Viennese-style pastry, cakes and pancakes filled with dulce de leche, a sort of milk caramel jam, alfajores, shortbread cookies sandwiched together with chocolate, dulce de leche or a fruit paste, and tortas fritas, fried cakes. Argentine wine, one of the world's finest, is an integral part of the local menu. Malbec, Torrontés, Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah and Chardonnay are some of the most sought-after varieties. National symbols. Some of Argentina's national symbols are defined by law, while others are traditions lacking formal designation. The flag of Argentina consists of 3 horizontal stripes equal in width and colored light blue, white and light blue, with the Son of May in the center of the middle white stripe. The flag was designed by Manuel Belgrano in 1812. It was adopted as a national symbol on the 20th of July 1816. The coat of arms, which represents the union of the provinces, came into use in 1813 as a seal for official documents. The Argentine national anthem was written by Vicente López y Planes with music by Blas Parera, and was adopted in 1813. The national cockade was first used during the May Revolution of 1810 and was made official 2 years later. The Virgin of Luján is Argentina's patron saint. The hornero, living across most of the national territory, was chosen as a national bird in 1928 after a lower school survey. The ceibo is the national floral emblem and national tree, while the quebracho colorado is the national forest tree. Rhodochrosite is known as a national gemstone. The national sport is Pato, an equestrian game that was popular among gauchos. Argentine wine is the national liquor, and mate, the national infusion. Asado and locro are considered the national dishes.
area that remained became Argentina. The country's population and culture were heavily shaped by immigrants from throughout Europe, with Italy and Spain providing the largest percentage of newcomers from 1860 to 1930. Up until about the mid-20th century, much of Argentina's history was dominated by periods of internal political unrest and conflict between civilian and military factions.
After World War II, an era of Peronist populism and direct and indirect military interference in subsequent governments was followed by a military junta that took power in 1976. Democracy returned in 1983 after a failed bid to seize the Falkland Islands, Islas Malvinas, by force, and has persisted despite numerous challenges, the most formidable of which was a severe economic crisis in 2001-02 that led to violent public protests and the successive resignations of several presidents. The years 2003-15 saw Peronist rule by Nestor and Cristina Fernández de Kirchner, whose policies isolated Argentina and caused economic stagnation. With the election of Mauricio Macri in November 2015, Argentina began a period of reform and international reintegration.
Argentina summary.
Adobe PDF.
Geography.
Argentina panel. Expanded.
Location. Southern South America, bordering the South Atlantic Ocean, between Chile and Uruguay.
Geographic coordinates. 3400 S. 6400 W.
Map references. South America.
Area total
2,780,400 square kilometers.
Land
2,736,690 square kilometers.
Water
43,710 square kilometers.
Country comparison to the world
9.
Area comparative, slightly less than 3/10 the size of the US.
Area comparison map.
Area comparison map.
Land boundaries. Total
11,968 kilometers.
Border countries 5.
Bolivia 942 kilometers, Brazil 1,263 kilometers, Chile 6,691 kilometers, Paraguay 2,531 kilometers, Uruguay 541 kilometers.
Coastline 4,989 kilometers.
Maritime claims, territorial sea
12 nanometers.
Exclusive economic zone
200 nanometers.
Contiguous zone
24 nanometers.
Continental shelf
200 nanometers or to the edge of the continental margin.
Climate mostly temperate, arid in southeast, subantarctic in southwest.
Terrain rich plains of the Pampas in northern half, flat to rolling plateau of Patagonia in south. Rugged Andes along western border.
Elevation, mean elevation
595 meters.
Elevation extremes
-105 meters lowest point.
Laguna del Carbon, located between Puerto San Julian and Comandante Luis Piedrabuena in the province of Santa Cruz.
6962 highest point.
Cerro Concagua, located in the northwestern corner of the province of Mendoza, highest point in South America.
Natural resources. Fertile plains of the Pampas, lead, zinc, tin, copper, iron ore, manganese, petroleum, uranium, arable land.
Land use, agricultural land
53.9%,
arable land
13.9%, permanent crops
0.4%, /permanent pasture
39.6%,
forest
10.7%,
other
35.4%,
irrigated land 23,600 square kilometers.
Population distribution. 1/3 of the population lives in Buenos Aires. Pockets of agglomeration occur throughout the northern and central parts of the country. Patagonia to the south remains sparsely populated.
Natural hazards. San Miguel de Tucumán and Mendoza areas in the Andes subject to earthquakes. Pamperos of violent windstorms that can strike the Pampas and northeast. Heavy flooding in some areas.
Volcanism.
Volcanic activity in the Andes Mountains along the Chilean border. Copiapó, 2,997 m. Last erupted in 2000. Other historically active volcanoes include Lalaco, Maipo, Planchón Pitaroa, San Jose, Troman, Tupungatito, and Viedma.
Environment. Current issues. Environmental problems, urban and rural, typical of an industrializing economy such as deforestation, soil degradation, erosion, salinization, desertification, air pollution, and water pollution.
Note:
Argentina is a world leader in setting voluntary greenhouse gas targets.
Environment, international agreements, Party to
Antarctic Environmental Protocol, Antarctic Marine Living Resources, Antarctic Seals, Antarctic Treaty, Biodiversity, climate change, Kyoto Protocol, desertification, endangered species, environmental modification, hazardous wastes, law of the sea, marine dumping, ozone layer protection, ship pollution, wetlands, whaling.
Signed, but not ratified.
Marine life conservation.
Geography. Note, second largest country in South America, after Brazil. Strategic location relative to sea lanes between the South Atlantic and the South Pacific Oceans. Strait of Magellan, Beagle Channel, Drake Passage. Diverse geophysical landscapes range from tropical climates in the north to tundra in the far south. Cerro Aconcagua is the Western Hemisphere's tallest mountain, while Laguna del Carbon is the lowest point in the Western Hemisphere. Shares Iguazu Falls, the world's largest waterfall system, with Brazil.
People and society.
Argentina panel expanded.
Population 44,694,198.
Country comparison to the world.
31.
Nationality, noun.
Argentines.
Adjective.
Argentine.
Ethnic groups, European, mostly Spanish and Italian descent, and mestizo, mixed European and Amerindian ancestry, 97.2%, Amerindian 2.4%, African 0.4%.
Languages. Spanish, official, Italian, English, German, French, indigenous, Mapudungun, Quechua.
Religions. Nominally Roman Catholic 92%, less than 20% practicing, Protestant 2%, Jewish 2%, other 4%.
Demographic profile. Argentina's population continues to grow but at a slower rate because of its steadily declining birth rate. Argentina's fertility decline began earlier than in the rest of Latin America, occurring most rapidly between the early 20th century and the 1950s, and then becoming more gradual. Life expectancy has been improving, most notably among the young and the poor. While the population under age 15 is shrinking, the youth cohort, ages 15-24, is the largest in Argentina's history and will continue to bolster the working-age population. If this large working-age population is well educated and gainfully employed, Argentina is likely to experience an economic boost and possibly higher per capita savings and investment. Although literacy and primary school enrollment are nearly universal, grade repetition is problematic and secondary school completion is low. Both of these issues vary widely by region and socio-economic group.
Argentina has been primarily a country of immigration for most of its history, welcoming European immigrants, often providing needed low-skilled labor, after its independence in the 19th century and attracting especially large numbers from Spain and Italy. More than 7 million European immigrants are estimated to have arrived in Argentina between 1880 and 1930, when it adopted a more restrictive immigration policy. European immigration also began to wane in the 1930s because of the global depression. The inflow rebounded temporarily following World War II and resumed its decline in the 1950s when Argentina's military dictators tightened immigration rules and European economies rebounded. Regional migration increased, however, supplying low-skilled workers escaping economic and political instability in their home countries. As of 2015, immigrants made up almost 5% of Argentina's population, the largest share in South America. Migration from neighboring countries accounted for approximately 80% of Argentina's immigrant population in 2015.
The first waves of highly skilled Argentine immigrant workers headed mainly to the United States and Spain in the 1960s and 1970s, driven by economic decline and repressive military dictatorships. The 2008 European economic crisis drove the return migration of some Argentinian and other Latin American nationals, as well as the immigration of Europeans to South America, where Argentina was a key recipient. In 2015, Argentina received the highest number of legal migrants in Latin America and the Caribbean. The majority of its migrant inflow came from Paraguay and Bolivia.
Age structure 0 to 14 years.
24.44%, male 5,629,345/female 5,293,680.
15 to 24 years.
15.2%, Male 3,476,344/female 3,317,151.
25 to 54 years.
39.46%. Male 8,808,591/female 8,826,379.
55 to 64 years.
9.12%. Male 1,977,421/female 2,096,665.
65 years and over.
11.79%. Male 2,216,487/female 3,052,135.
Population pyramid.
Population pyramid.
Dependency ratios.
Dependency ratios are a measure of the age structure of a population. They relate the number of individuals that are likely to be economically dependent on the support of others. Dependency ratios contrast the ratio of youths, ages 0-14, and the elderly, ages 65 plus, to the number of those in the working age group, ages 15-64. Changes in the dependency ratio provide an indication of potential social support requirements resulting from changes in population age structures. As a fertility level. More dependency ratios field listing.
Total dependency ratio.
56.5.
Youth dependency ratio.
39.4.
Elderly dependency ratio.
17.1.
Potential support ratio.
5.8.
Median age, total.
31.9 years.
Male.
30.7 years.
Female.
33.1 years.
Country comparison to the world.
107.
Population growth rate.
The average annual percent change in the population, resulting from a surplus, or deficit, of births over deaths and the balance of migrants entering and leaving a country. The rate may be positive or negative. The growth rate is a factor in determining how great a burden would be imposed on a country by the changing needs of its people for infrastructure, for example, schools, hospitals, housing, roads, resources, for example, food, water, electricity, and jobs. Rapid population growth can be seen as more population growth rate field listing.
0.89%.
Country comparison to the world.
121.
Birth rate, 16.5 births out of 1,000 population.
Country comparison to the world.
109.
Death rate, 7.5 deaths out of 1,000 population.
Country comparison to the world.
108.
Net migration rate, minus 0.1 migrants out of 1,000 population.
Country comparison to the world.
102.
Population distribution. 1/3 of the population lives in Buenos Aires. Pockets of agglomeration occur throughout the northern and central parts of the country. Patagonia to the south remains sparsely populated.
Urbanization. Urban population.
91.9% of total population.
Rate of urbanization.
1.07% annual rate of change.
Major urban areas. Population. 14.967 million Buenos Aires. Capital, 1.548 million Córdoba, 1.488 million Rosario, 1.133 million Mendoza, 956,000 San Miguel de Tucumán, 864,000 La Plata.
Sex ratio at birth.
1.06 male/female.
0 to 14 years.
1.06 male/female.
15 to 24 years.
1.05 male/female.
25 to 54 years.
1 male/female.
55 to 64 years.
0.94 male/female.
65 years and over.
0.71 male/female.
Total population.
0.98 male/female.
Maternal mortality rate.
The maternal mortality rate, MMR, is the annual number of female deaths per 100,000 live births from any cause related to or aggravated by pregnancy or its management, excluding accidental or incidental causes. The MMR includes deaths during pregnancy, childbirth, on within 42 days of termination of pregnancy, irrespective of the duration and site of the pregnancy, for a specified year. Maternal mortality rate field listing.
52 deaths/100,000 live births.
Country comparison to the world.
94.
Infant mortality rate. Total.
9.5 deaths out of 1,000 live births.
Male.
10.4 deaths out of 1,000 live births.
Female.
8.5 deaths out of 1,000 live births.
Country comparison to the world.
138.
Life expectancy at birth. Total population.
77.5 years.
Male.
74.4 years.
Female.
80.8 years.
Country comparison to the world.
70.
Total fertility rate. 2.25 children born. Woman.
Country comparison to the world.
92.
Contraceptive prevalence rate.
This field gives the percent of women of reproductive age, 1549, who are married or in union and are using, or whose sexual partner is using, a method of contraception according to the date of the most recent available data. The contraceptive prevalence rate is an indicator of health services, development, and women's empowerment. It is also useful in understanding past, present, and future fertility trends, especially in developing countries. Contraceptive prevalence rate field listing.
81.3%.
Health expenditures. 4.8% of GDP.
Country comparison to the world.
146.
Physicians density. 3.91 physicians out of 1,000 population.
Hospital bed density. 5 beds out of 1,000 population.
Drinking water source. Improved.
Urban.
99% of population.
Rural.
100% of population.
Total.
99.1% of population.
Unimproved.
Urban.
1% of population.
Rural.
0% of population.
Total.
0.9% of population.
Sanitation facility access. Improved.
Urban.
96.2% of population.
Rural.
98.3% of population.
Total.
96.4% of population.
Unimproved.
Urban.
3.8% of population.
Rural.
1.7% of population.
Total.
3.6% of population.
HIV/AIDS adult prevalence rate 0.4%.
Country comparison to the world.
68.
HIV/AIDS. People living with HIV/AIDS. 120,000.
Country comparison to the world.
38.
HIV/AIDS deaths 2,000.
Country comparison to the world.
50.
Major infectious diseases. Note.
Active local transmission of Zika virus by each species mosquitoes has been identified in this country. As of August 2016, it poses an important risk, a large number of cases possible, among U.S. citizens if bitten by an infective mosquito. Other less common ways to get Zika through sex, via blood transfusion, or during pregnancy, in which the pregnant woman passes Zika virus to her fetus.
Obesity. Adult prevalence rate 28.3%.
Country comparison to the world.
30.
Education expenditures 5.9% of GDP.
Country comparison to the world.
37.
Literacy. Definition.
Age 15 and over can read and write.
Total population.
98.1%.
Male.
98%.
Female.
98.1%.
School life expectancy. Primary to tertiary education.
School life expectancy, SLE, is the total number of years of schooling, primary to tertiary, that a child can expect to receive, assuming that the probability of his or her being enrolled in school at any particular future age is equal to the current enrollment ratio at that age. Caution must be maintained when utilizing this indicator in international comparisons. For example, a year or grade completed in one country is not of educational content or quality. More school life expectancy, primary to tertiary education, field listing.
Total.
17 years.
Male.
16 years.
Female.
18 years.
Unemployment. Youth ages 15-24. Total.
18.3%.
Male.
15.6%.
Female.
22.8%.
Country comparison to the world.
71.
Government.
Argentina panel. Expanded.
Country name. Conventional long form.
Argentine Republic.
Conventional short form.
Argentina.
Local long form.
República Argentina.
Local short form.
Argentina.
Etymology.
Originally the area was referred to as Tierra Argentina, i.e., land beside the Silvery River, or Silvery Land, which referred to the massive estuary in the east of the country, the Rio de la Plata, River of Silver, Over time the name shortened to simply Argentina or Silvery.
Government type, Presidential Republic.
Capital name,
Buenos Aires.
Geographic coordinates,
3436S, 5822W.
time difference,
UTC 3, 2 hours ahead of Washington, D.C., during Standard Time.
etymology,
The name translates as fair winds in Spanish and derives from the original designation of the settlement that would become the present-day city, Santa Maria del Buenaire, Saint Mary of the Fair Winds.
administrative divisions, 23 provinces, provincias, singular, provincia, and 1 autonomous city *, Buenos Aires, Catamarca, Chaco, Chubut, Ciudad Autónoma de Buenos Aires *, Córdoba, Corrientes, Entre Rios, Formosa, Jujuy, La Pampa, La Rioja, Mendoza, Misiones, Neuquén, Rio Negro, Salta, San Juan, San Luis, Santa Cruz, Santa Fe, Santiago del Estero, Tierra del Fuego, Antártida y Islas del Atlántico Sur, Tierra del Fuego, Antarctica and the South Atlantic Islands. Tucumán.
Note:
The US does not recognize any claims to Antarctica.
Independence.
For most countries, this entry gives the date that sovereignty was achieved and from which nation, empire, or trusteeship. For the other countries, the date given may not represent independence in the strict sense, but rather some significant nationhood event such as the traditional founding date or the date of unification, federation, confederation, establishment, fundamental change in the form of government, or state succession. For a number of countries, the establishment of statehood. More independence field listing.
The 9th of July 1816, from Spain.
National holiday. Revolution Day, May Revolution Day, the 25th of May, 1810.
Constitution. History.
Several previous, latest effective the 11th of May 1853.
Amendments.
A declaration of proposed amendments requires 2/3 majority vote by both houses of the National Congress followed by approval by an ad hoc, multi-member constitutional convention, amended many times, last significantly in 1994.
Legal system. Civil law system based on West European legal systems. Note: in mid-2015, Argentina adopted a new civil code, replacing the old one in force since 1871.
International Law Organization participation has not submitted an ICJ jurisdiction declaration, accept SIC jurisdiction.
Citizenship. Citizenship by birth.
Yes.
Citizenship by descent only.
Yes.
Dual citizenship recognized.
Yes.
Residency requirement for naturalization.
2 years.
Suffrage. 18-70 years of age. Universal and compulsory. 16-17 years of age. Optional for national elections.
Executive branch. Chief of State.
President Mauricio Macri, since the 10th of December 2015. Vice President Gabriela Michetti, since the 10th of December 2015. Note: the President is both Chief of State and Head of Government.
Head of Government.
President Mauricio Macri, since the 10th of December 2015. Vice President Gabriela Michetti, since the 10th of December 2015.
Cabinet.
Cabinet appointed by the President.
Elections/appointments.
President and Vice President directly elected on the same ballot by qualified majority popular vote for a 4-year term, eligible for a second consecutive term. Election last held in 2 rounds on 25 October and the 22nd of November 2015. Next to be held on the 27th of October 2019.
Election results.
Mauricio Macri elected president in second round, percent of vote in first round. Daniel Scioli, PJ 37.1%, Mauricio Macri, PRO 34.2%, Sergio Massa, FR/PJ 21.4%, other 7.3%, percent of vote in second round, Mauricio Macri, PRO 51.4%, Daniel Scioli, PJ 48.6%.
Legislative branch. Description.
Bicameral National Congress or Congreso Nacional consists of
Senate, 72 seats. Members directly elected in multi-seat constituencies by simple majority vote to serve 6-year terms with 1/3 of the membership elected every 2 years.
Chamber of Deputies, 257 seats. Members directly elected in multi-seat constituencies by proportional representation vote. Members serve 4-year terms with 1/2 of the membership renewed every 2 years.
Elections. Senate, last held on the 22nd of October 2017, next to be held in October 2019.
Chamber of Deputies, last held on the 22nd of October 2017, next to be held in October 2019.
Election results.
Senate, percent of vote by bloc or party, Na, seats by bloc or party, Cambi Mos 12, UK 6, PJ 4, FRC 2, composition, men 42, women 30. Percent of women 41.7%.
Chamber of Deputies, percent of vote by bloc or party, NA, seats by bloc or party, Cambi Mos 61, UK 28, J 18, 7, FX 3, FX 2, other 8, composition, men 159, women 98, percent of women 38.1%. Note, total National Congress, percent of women 38.9%.
Judicial branch, highest courts.
Supreme Court or Court Suprema, consists of the court president, vice president, and 5 judges.
Judge selection and term of office.
Judges nominated by the president and approved by the Senate. Judges can serve until mandatory retirement at age 75.
Subordinate courts.
Federal level appellate, district, and territorial courts. Provincial level supreme, appellate, and first instance courts.
Political parties and leaders. Cambi Mos, Mauricio Macri, Coalition of CCR, PRO, and UCR.
Citizens Unity or UC, Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner.
Civic Coalition Ariel CCR, Elisa Carrillo.
Civic Front for Santiago or FCS, Gerardo Zamora.
Dissident Peronists, PJ Dissidente, or Federal Peronism, Eduardo Duhalde, a right-wing faction of PJ opposed to the Kirchners.
Front for the Renewal of Concord or FRC.
Front for Victory or FPV, Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner, left-wing faction of PJ.
Justicialist Party or PJ, Jose Luis Joja.
Progresistas, Margarita Stolbizer.
Radical Civic Union or UCR, Lilia Pugli Stubrin.
Renewal Front, Frente Renovador, or FR, Sergio Massa.
Republican Proposal or PRO, Maurizio Macri.
Socialist Party or BS, Antonio Bonfatti.
United for a New Alternative or UNA, includes FR.
Numerous provincial parties.
International Organization Participation of non-regional member, Australia Group, BCIE, BIS, CAN, Associate, CD, CELAC, FAO, FATF, G15, G20, G24, G77, YIB, IA, IBD, ICAO, ICC, National Committees, ICT, ICM, IDA, IFAD, IFX, EHO, ELO, IMF, EMO, IMSO, Interpol, IOC, IOM, IPU, ISO, ITSO, ITU, ITUC, NGOs, LEAS, LAIA, Mercosur, MIGA, MINURSO, MINUSTER, NAM, Observer, NSC, OAS, OpenAll, OPCW, Paris Club, Associate, SICA, Observer, UN, UNASA, UNCTAD, UNESCO, UNFICIP, UNHCR, UNIDO, Union Latina, Observer, UNSO, UNUTO, UPU, UCO, UF2, NGOs, WHO, WIPO, WMO, WIDO.
Diplomatic representation in the U.S., Chief of Mission.
Ambassador Fernando Orisd Roa, since the 24th of January 2018.
Chancery.
1600 New Hampshire Avenue Northwest, Washington, D.C. 20009.
Telephone.
1-202-238-6400.
Fax.
1-202-332-3171.
Consulates General.
Atlanta, Chicago, Houston, Los Angeles, Miami, New York, Washington, D.C.
Diplomatic representation from the U.S., Chief of Mission.
Ambassador Edward Charles Prado, since the 16th of May 2018.
Embassy.
Avenida Colombia 4300, C 1425, Buenos Aires.
Mailing address.
International mail.
Use Embassy Street address, APO address.
U.S. Embassy, Buenos Aires, Unit 4334, APO AA 34034.
Telephone.
54 11 5777 to 4533.
Fax.
54 11 5777 to 4240.
Flag description. 3 equal horizontal bands of sky blue, top, white, and sky blue. Centered in the white band is a radiant yellow sun with a human face, delineated in brown, known as the Sun of May. The colors represent the clear skies and snow of the Andes. The sun symbol commemorates the appearance of the sun through cloudy skies on the 25th of May 1810 during the first mass demonstration in favor of independence. The sun features are those of Inti, the Inca god of the sun.
National symbol, S.
A national symbol is a formal, floral, or other abstract representation, or some distinctive object, that over time has come to be closely identified with a country or entity. Not all countries have national symbols, a few countries have more than one. National symbols field listing.
Son of May, a sun with face symbol. National colors,
Sky blue, white.
national anthem,
A generally patriotic musical composition, usually in the form of a song or hymn of praise, that evokes and eulogizes the history, traditions, or struggles of a nation or its people. National anthems can be officially recognized as a national song by a country's constitution or by an enacted law, or simply by tradition. Although most anthems contain lyrics, some do not. National anthem field listing.
name,
Himno Nacional Argentino, Argentine National Anthem.
lyrics/music,
Vicente Lopez y Plains, José Blas Pereira.
note,
Adopted 1813. Vicente Lopez was inspired to write the anthem after watching a play about the 1810 May Revolution against Spain.
economy,
Argentina panel, expanded.
economy, overview. Argentina benefits from rich natural resources, a highly literate population, an export-oriented agricultural sector, and a diversified industrial base. Although one of the world's wealthiest countries 100 years ago, Argentina suffered during most of the 20th century from recurring economic crises, persistent fiscal and current account deficits, high inflation, mounting external debt, and capital flight.
Cristina Fernández de Kirchner succeeded her husband as president in late 2007, and in 2008 the rapid economic growth of previous years slowed sharply as government policies held back exports and the world economy fell into recession. In 2010 the economy rebounded strongly, but slowed in late 2011 even as the government continued to rely on expansionary fiscal and monetary policies, which kept inflation in the double digits.
In order to deal with these problems, the government expanded state intervention in the economy.
It nationalized the oil company YPF from Spain's Repsol, expanded measures to restrict imports, and further tightened currency controls in an effort to bolster foreign reserves and stem capital flight. Between 2011 and 2013, central bank foreign reserves dropped $21.3 billion from a high of $52.7 billion. In July 2014, Argentina and China agreed on an $11 billion currency swap. The Argentine Central Bank has received the equivalent of $3.2 billion in Chinese yuan, which it counts as international reserves.
With the election of President Mauricio Macri in November 2015, Argentina began a historic political and economic transformation, as his administration took steps to liberalize the Argentine economy, lifting capital controls, floating the peso, removing export controls on some commodities, cutting some energy subsidies, and reforming the country's official statistics. Argentina negotiated debt payments with holdout bond creditors, continued working with the IMF to shore up its finances, and returned to international capital markets in April 2016.
In 2017, Argentina's economy emerged from recession with GDP growth of nearly 3.0%. The government passed important pension, tax, and fiscal reforms. And after years of international isolation, Argentina took on several international leadership roles, including hosting the World Economic Forum on Latin America in the World Trade Organization Ministerial Conference, and is set to assume the presidency of the G20 in 2018.
GDP, purchasing power parity, $922.1 billion,
$896.5 billion.
$913.2 billion.
Note.
Data in 2017 dollars.
Country comparison to the world.
28.
GDP, official exchange rate, $637.6 billion.
GDP, real growth rate, 2.9%.
Minus 1.8%.
2.7%.
Country comparison to the world.
117.
GDP, per capita, PPP, $20,900.
$20,600.
$21,200.
Note.
Data are in 2017 dollars.
Country comparison to the world.
88.
Gross national saving.
Gross national saving is derived by deducting final consumption expenditure, household plus government, from gross national disposable income, and consists of personal saving, plus business saving, the sum of the capital consumption allowance and retained business profits, plus government saving, the excess of tax revenues over expenditures, but excludes foreign saving, the excess of imports of goods and services over exports. The figures are presented as a percent of GDP. A negative. More gross national saving field listing.
17.6% of GDP.
16.8% of GDP.
15.8% of GDP.
Country comparison to the world.
114.
GDP, composition, by end use. Household consumption.
65.9%.
Government consumption.
18.2%.
Investment in fixed capital.
14.8%.
Investment in inventories.
3.7%.
Exports of goods and services.
11.2%.
Imports of goods and services.
Minus 13.8%.
GDP, composition, by sector of origin. Agriculture.
10.8%.
Industry.
28.1%.
Services.
61.1%.
Agriculture, products. Sunflower seeds, lemons, soybeans, grapes, corn, tobacco, peanuts, tea, wheat, livestock.
Industries. Food processing, motor vehicles, consumer durables, textiles, chemicals and petrochemicals, printing, metallurgy, steel.
Industrial production growth rate 2.7%.
Note.
Based on private sector estimates.
Country comparison to the world.
111.
Labor force. 18 million.
Note.
Urban areas only.
Country comparison to the world.
33.
Labor force, by occupation. Agriculture.
5.3%.
Industry.
28.6%.
Services.
66.1%.
Unemployment rate. 8.4%.
8.5%.
Country comparison to the world.
120.
Population below poverty line.
National estimates of the percentage of the population falling below the poverty line are based on surveys of subgroups, with the results weighted by the number of people in each group. Definitions of poverty vary considerably among nations. For example, rich nations generally employ more generous standards of poverty than poor nations. Population below poverty line field listing.
25.7%.
Note.
Data are based on private estimates.
Household income or consumption by percentage share.
Data on household income or consumption come from household surveys, the results adjusted for household size. Nations use different standards and procedures in collecting and adjusting the data. Surveys based on income will normally show a more unequal distribution than surveys based on consumption. The quality of surveys is improving with time, yet caution is still necessary in making inter-country comparisons. Household income or consumption by percentage share field listing.
Lowest 10%.
31%.
Highest 10%.
31%.
Distribution of family income. Gini index.
This index measures the degree of inequality in the distribution of family income in a country. The index is calculated from the Lorentz curve, in which cumulative family income is plotted against the number of families arranged from the poorest to the richest. The index is the ratio of A, the area between a country's Lorentz curve and the 45-degree helping line, to B, the entire triangular area under the 45-degree line. The more nearly equal a country's income distribution, the closer its more distribution of family income. Gini index field listing.
41.7.
45.8.
Country comparison to the world.
54.
Budget. Revenues.
120.6 billion.
Expenditures.
158.6 billion.
Taxes and other revenues. 18.9% of GDP.
Country comparison to the world.
157.
Budget surplus, plus, or deficit, dash, minus 6%. Of GDP.
Country comparison to the world.
182.
Public debt. 57.6% of GDP.
55% of GDP.
Country comparison to the world.
77.
Fiscal year. Calendar year.
Inflation rate. Consumer prices. 25.7%.
26.5%.
Note.
Data derived from private estimates.
Country comparison to the world.
219.
Central bank discount rate. NA.
Commercial bank prime lending rate. 26.58%.
31.23%.
Country comparison to the world.
9.
Stock of narrow money. $62.61 billion.
$59 billion.
Country comparison to the world.
48.
Stock of broad money. $62.61 billion.
$59 billion.
Country comparison to the world.
48.
Stock of domestic credit. $219.4 billion.
$194 billion.
Country comparison to the world.
44.
Market value of publicly traded shares. $56.13 billion.
$60.14 billion.
$53.1 billion.
Country comparison to the world.
50.
Current account balance, minus $31.32 billion.
Minus $14.69 billion.
Country comparison to the world.
200.
Exports, $58.45 billion.
$57.78 billion.
Country comparison to the world.
49.
Exports, partners, Brazil 16.1%, US 7.9%, China 7.5%, Chile 4.4%.
Exports, commodities, soybeans and derivatives, petroleum and gas, vehicles, corn, wheat.
Imports, $63.97 billion.
$53.5 billion.
Country comparison to the world.
48.
Imports, commodities, machinery, motor vehicles, petroleum and natural gas, organic chemicals, plastics.
Imports, partners, Brazil 26.9%, China 18.5%, US 11.3%, Germany 4.9%.
Reserves of foreign exchange and gold, $55.33 billion.
$38.43 billion.
Country comparison to the world.
38.
Debt, external, $214.9 billion.
$190.2 billion.
Country comparison to the world.
34.
Stock of direct foreign investment, at home, $76.58 billion.
$72.11 billion.
Country comparison to the world.
52.
Stock of direct foreign investment, abroad, $40.94 billion.
$39.74 billion.
Country comparison to the world.
46.
Exchange rates. Argentine pesos, ARS, the US dollar.
16.92.
14.76.
14.76.
9.23.
808.
Energy.
Argentina panel expanded.
Electricity access. Population without electricity.
1.5 million.
Electrification. Total population.
96.4%.
Electrification. Urban areas.
99.2%.
Electrification. Rural areas.
96%.
Electricity. Production. 131.9 billion kWh.
Country comparison to the world.
30.
Electricity consumption 121 billion.
Country comparison to the world.
30.
Electricity. Exports. 55 million kWh.
Country comparison to the world.
85.
Electricity imports 9.851 billion.
Country comparison to the world.
26.
Electricity. Installed generating capacity. 38.35 million kW.
Country comparison to the world.
27.
Electricity from fossil fuels 69% of total installed capacity.
Country comparison to the world.
112.
Electricity from nuclear fuels 4% of total installed capacity.
Country comparison to the world.
23.
Electricity from hydroelectric plants 24% of total installed capacity.
Country comparison to the world.
79.
Electricity from other renewable sources 3% of total installed capacity.
Country comparison to the world.
120.
Crude oil production 479,400 barrels/day.
Country comparison to the world.
29.
Crude oil exports 36,630 barrel day.
Country comparison to the world.
43.
Crude oil imports 16,740 barrels/day.
Country comparison to the world.
68.
Crude oil proved reserves 2.162 billion barrel
Country comparison to the world.
32.
Refined petroleum products production 669,800 barrels/day.
Country comparison to the world.
26.
Refined petroleum products consumption 806,000 barrel day.
Country comparison to the world.
27.
Refined petroleum products exports 58,360 barrels/day.
Country comparison to the world.
51.
Refined petroleum products imports 121,400 barrel day.
Country comparison to the world.
49.
Natural gas production 40.92 billion qm.
Country comparison to the world.
20.
Natural gas consumption 49.04 billion cubic meters.
Country comparison to the world.
17.
Natural gas exports 76.45 million qm.
Country comparison to the world.
49.
Natural gas imports 9.826 billion cubic meters.
Country comparison to the world.
27.
Natural gas proved reserves 336.6 billion qm.
Country comparison to the world.
35.
Carbon dioxide emissions from consumption of energy 203.7 million mount.
Country comparison to the world.
32.
Communications.
Argentina panel expanded.
Telephones, fixed lines, total subscriptions
9,530,349.
subscriptions per 100 inhabitants.
22.
Country comparison to the world.
19.
Telephones, mobile cellular, total subscriptions
61,897,379.
subscriptions per 100 inhabitants.
140.
Country comparison to the world.
26.
Telephone system, general assessment.
Argentina opened its telecommunications market to competition and foreign investment, encouraging the growth of modern telecommunications technology in 1998. Major networks are entirely digital and the availability of telephone service continues to improve to rural areas. Even with numerous providers, there is a lack of competition. Still, Argentina is the third largest in the region after Brazil and Mexico.
Domestic.
Microwave radio relay, fiber optic cable, and a domestic satellite system with 40 Earth stations serve the trunk network. 22 per 100 fixed line, 144 per 100 mobile cellular.
International.
Country code 54, landing point for the Atlantis 2, Unisia, South America 1, and South American crossing, Latin American Nautilus submarine cable systems that provide links to Europe, Africa, South and Central America, and U.S. Satellite Earth stations, 112, 2 international gateways near Buenos Aires. Building started on the Arabia submarine cable between Argentina and Brazil.
Broadcast media. Government owns a TV station and radio network. More than 24 TV stations and hundreds of privately owned radio stations. High rate of cable TV subscription usage.
Internet country code .r.
Internet users, total.
30,786,889.
Percent of population.
70.2%.
Country comparison to the world.
24.
Broadband, fixed subscriptions, total.
7,870,222.
Subscriptions per 100 inhabitants.
18.
Country comparison to the world.
20.
Transportation.
Argentina panel expanded.
National Air Transport System. Number of registered air carriers.
6.
Inventory of registered aircraft operated by air carriers.
107.
Annual passenger traffic on registered air carriers.
14,245,183.
Annual freight traffic on registered air carriers.
243,772,567 Mount km.
Civil aircraft registration country code prefix. LV.
Airports 1,138.
Country comparison to the world.
6.
Airports with paved runways, total.
161.
Over 3,047 m.
4.
2,438 to 3,047 m.
29.
1,524 to 2,437 m.
65.
914 to 1,523 m.
53.
Under 914 m.
10.
Airports with unpaved runways, total.
9. 977.
Over 3047 m.
1.
2438 to 3047 m.
1.
1524 to 2437 m.
43.
914 to 1523 m.
484.
Under 914 m.
448.
Heliports 2.
Pipelines, 29,930 kilometers gas, 41 kilometers liquid petroleum gas, 6,248 kilometers oil, 3,631 kilometers refined products.
Railways total
36,917 kilometers.
standard gauge
2. 745.1 kilometers 1.435 meter gauge, 41.1 kilometers electrified.
narrow gauge
7. 523.3 kilometers 1.000 meter gauge.
broad gauge
26,391 kilometers 1.676 meter gauge, 149 kilometers electrified.
258 0.750 m gauge
Country comparison to the world.
6.
Roadways, total.
231,374 kilometers
Paved.
69,412 kilometers includes 734 kilometers of expressways.
Unpaved.
161,962 kilometers.
Country comparison to the world.
22.
Waterways, 11,000 kilometers.
Country comparison to the world.
11.
Merchant marine.
Merchant marine may be defined as all ships engaged in the carriage of goods, or all commercial vessels, as opposed to all non-military ships, which excludes tugs, fishing vessels, offshore oil rigs, etc.
Total
161.
by type.
Container ship 1, general cargo 9, oil tanker 27, other 124.
Country comparison to the world.
69.
Ports and terminals. Major seaport S.
Bahia Blanca, Buenos Aires, La Plata, Punta Colorada, Ushuaia.
Container port S. Chis.
Buenos Aires, 1,851,701.
LNG terminal S. Import.
Bahia Blanca.
River port S.
Arroyo Seco, Rosario, San Lorenzo San Martin, Paraná.
Military and security.
Argentina panel, expanded.
Military expenditures 0.95% of GDP.
0.86% of GDP.
0.88% of GDP.
Country comparison to the world.
118.
Military branches. Argentine Army, Ejército Argentino. Navy of the Argentine Republic, Armada Republica, includes naval aviation and naval infantry. Argentine Air Force, Fuerza Aérea Argentina, FAR.
Military service age and obligation 18 to 24 years of age for voluntary military service. 18 to 21 requires parental consent. No conscription. If the number of volunteers fails to meet the quota of recruits for a particular year, Congress can authorize the conscription of citizens turning 18 that year for a period not exceeding 1 year.
Military. Note: the Argentine military is a well-organized force constrained by the country's prolonged economic hardship. The country has recently experienced a strong recovery, and the military is implementing a modernization plan aimed at making the ground forces lighter and more responsive.
Terrorism.
Argentina panel, expanded.
Terrorist groups, foreign-based, Hezbollah, AIM, S.
Largely limited to generating political and financial support from the Lebanese diaspora.
Area, S. of operation.
Conducted operations in the 1990s, maintains a limited presence. April 2018.
Transnational issues.
Argentina panel, expanded.
Disputes, international. Argentina continues to assert its claims to the administered Falkland Islands, Islas Malvinas, South Georgia, and the South Sandwich Islands in its constitution, forcibly occupying the Falklands in 1982, but in 1995 agreed to no longer seek settlement by force. Continues to reject Argentine requests for sovereignty. Talks. Territorial claim in Antarctica partially overlaps UK and Chilean claims and contested dispute between Brazil and Uruguay over Brasileira/Brasileira Island in the Quirá/Qrime River leaves the trip point with Argentina in question in 2010. The ICJ ruled in favor of Uruguay's operation of 2 paper mills on the Uruguay River, which forms the border with Argentina. The 2 countries formed a joint pollution monitoring regime. Joint Boundary Commission, established by Chile and Argentina in 2001, has yet to map and demarcate the delimited boundary in the inhospitable Andean southern ice field. Campo de Hilo Sur, contraband smuggling, human trafficking, and illegal narcotic trafficking are problems in the porous areas of the border with Bolivia.
Refugees and internally displaced persons. Refugees, country of origin.
94,632. Venezuela, economic and political crisis, includes Venezuelans who have claimed asylum or have received alternative legal stay.